Okay.
We are live. Minette, you're not live. You're way over there. Hi, this is Wally with Supreme Gecko.
And Nanette.
How's everybody tonight? We're doing good. You just saw us 1 day ago, 24 hours ago. 24 hours ago? That sounds about right. And I've got my volume
Surprised
way up. I'm going to shut down my... Surprised everybody came back. I'm kind of surprised too. Although, you know, if you expected Brian Butler or Flawless Crested Geckos or Living Wild LLC, you're sorely disappointed. You're sorely going to be disappointed because you have Nanette and I. Now, we have Ian coming on tonight, Ian Pulka from Artificial Geckos. I hope I'm saying that right. And Ian is working on some sound issues, and hopefully he'll be back in just a second here. We're going to kind of update you all on what's going on with Supreme Gecko. If you were in the live yesterday, you heard some of this, but Nanette, tell us what we've done in the last couple of days. Update everybody on the last 2 or 3 days.
The last 2 or 3 days.
You look at me like, you know as well as I do.
I'm just trying to get through the last 10 minutes. We
Hi,
went
John.
to Michigan on Tuesday. We took Crystal with us, and we went to Nellie's Dutch Village and learned about making Dutch shoes, learned clogging. Crystal actually clogged with them. They had them come down from the audience. We learned that we love fudge, and now Crystal loves fudge.
I love fudge.
Yeah,
I eat all of Crystal's. She's not here today because she's with her other grandparents, and I ate all of Crystal's fudge.
He just popped in.
Yes, Ian popped in. We'll be with Ian in just a moment. Ian, if you can hear me, I think you can. We'll be with you in just a moment. We're just going to do a couple of brief intros, and then we'll bring you on. So give us just a minute.
We also did Windmill Gardens, which was absolutely gorgeous. They had tons of beautiful flowers.
That's your favorite, isn't it?
It was, and I enjoyed it more now than I did at the tulip time because it just had such a great variety. And you guys climbed up a lighthouse to the top.
You didn't go up to the top?
I wimped out and I stayed down a little because I didn't like the height of it. And then I'm a big baby. And then we went out for Olive Garden dinner and had a very nice dinner with Crystal and had lots of fun. And then went back to the hotel and went down by the pool just to check it out and sat out on a hammock outside because it was so beautiful.
Fell asleep for 4 hours.
Yeah, no, I did not. And then we got up the next morning and had an awesome breakfast, which was waffles for some of us. And then we had, we went to Pangea and got to tour Pangea. So that was a lot of fun. And there will be a video coming out soon on that. Wally's got a lot of work to do on that video because there was a lot of work, a lot of breaking up and stopping and starting over. And
a lot of footage that I'm going to unfortunately have to cut out because there were a lot of things that we were at Pangea and filming. Do we film anymore? We record. We record. What is film? Nobody knows what film is. So at Pangea, we're recording, and John would say, could you not maybe show this part? So we were very fortunate in seeing some of the inner functions of Pangea, but obviously we can't put everything on that video. So I'm going to do some editing, cutting, subtraction, addition, and then finish the editing, post it on YouTube for a private go back to John DeBear and give it to him for review, and Matt Parks, obviously, with Pangea. And from there, then we will hopefully publish it. Let's see if that light adds a little bit. Okay, what else? So we left Pangea and we had 4 hours and 31 minutes to get back so that we could do the live last night. Because it took 4 hours and 30 minutes driving time to get back to Wisconsin. We just made it. I think we made it. We
were here within an hour of the next show.
Unbelievable.
And had a tire issue on the way home and weren't sure what was going on and got home okay.
Oh my gosh.
And then today we had just menial little doctor's appointments, and then I worked for a couple hours. Then I went and had the tire taken care of, and I just got out of my college class like 10 minutes ago, and I went down in that class. I lost all my internet at the end, so I had to stay in longer once I could figure it out. So it's been a whirlwind. It's going to continue.
I haven't asked Bugs and Bean. We're going to read off who's here, but I hope everybody can hear us. Otherwise, we're just blah, 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 talking and nobody can hear us. So give us a thumbs up. Tell us that they can hear us
because Angie Hurt made the comment about the breakfast in a hotel I don't book any hotel unless they have a free breakfast the next morning or included breakfast the next morning.
So if you saw the picture that I posted on Facebook with Crystal just intense looking at this waffle, she's buttering it and everything. She puts one bite in her mouth and she literally almost spits it out on her plate. Crystal, what's wrong? Isn't that waffle okay? And she's got this weird look. Well, she took cream cheese.
They didn't have butter. It was cream cheese, and we didn't.
So there was no way she was going to have waffles after that. Okay. No. Let me talk about, go ahead and tell us who's here, Nanette.
Well, Angie's here, J-Bug's here, 503 is here, Angelica's Gills, Fangs, and Bangs, I think it said before you moved it. Bugs and Being is here.
Laura?
Glasses on. Laura is here.
503.
I already said them. I said
Jay?
them. I said
Did
them.
you say Jay?
Yep.
Did you say 503? Yes. Okay. Aaron is
here. I don't see Frank yet.
Did you see
is Frank
say
here?
Angie?
John's here. Angie's here.
I'm just doing this too.
Yeah, you are. And you're doing a very good job.
I'm just flying through this list. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Okay.
Here's
JP
Frank.
is here. Frank is here.
Oh,
Sorry,
he won't be
Frank.
able to make it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got some company.
And that's okay.
So
we got lots of good people here.
If you guys have questions, as you can see at the bottom, throw the questions into the chat. Put the word question in all caps, and we will make sure that we star and cover your questions. Nanette's going to do that, hopefully. Okay. If I can get up to that. Right now? I don't know what I'm doing. So
I'm going to go change my shirt. I have a big spot.
You have a big what?
I think I have a spot.
Oh, my gosh. I saw that, but I didn't tell her because I wanted to embarrass her. No, I didn't. So she's laughing in the other room. I can hear her laughing. We have a big event coming up, and we're going to bring Ian Pulka on in just a minute here. But I wanted to let everybody know that we have a big event coming up Monday. We're going to go 24 hours. If Frank was here, he would say, yeah, 24 hours. Well, we're going to go until I and Nanette, one of the two of us, gets tired, which probably won't be for 24 hours. If we start at 6:30, that's probably like 10 or 10:30. We'll get tired and we'll have to go to bed. So we'll keep the live stream running for 24 hours, but then we're going to go to bed for like 8 or 10 hours. And then we're going to come back and see if anybody has any questions. So what are we doing with that Monday marathon? A couple of things. This is going to be crazy, folks. I just want to make sure I catch all these. So Monday marathon, we're going to do the big Buy Me a Coffee giveaway. You saw the gargoyle, you saw the crusted geckos, you saw the Periodora picta. Supplies, we're going to throw a bunch of stuff in there as well. That part is only for Buy Me a Coffee members, but we are also going to have and make sure that you check the description in that Monday marathon video that's out there, the live stream that's out there, because I have the rules. There's a couple of different rules in there. But we'll also have some giveaways for everybody that joins Monday night. So make sure that you join. I'm trying to go through this fast so I don't hold Ian up, but I do want to. I know. The giveaway special tool, I'm going to mention the special tool that I use for organization. I've created like 5 or 6 different videos for this. I use it to help me get things done. I get a lot of things done. The one thing that I feel myself I'm really good at is organization and getting stuff
delegation.
Done. And I'm really good at delegation. So we're going to talk about that. And I have, for the Buy Me a Coffee members, a very, very, very special bonus benefit that we're going to put out there Monday. And we've been working on this for about a month. And if you saw our Green Bay Scaled Up Expo show, you saw a little bit of it. You're going to have to look a little closer to the video if you want to see what we're doing. But it's going to be fun, and there's going to be a special benefit for our Buy Me a Coffee members. So if you don't know anything about Buy Me a Coffee, contact me after the show and ask me. There is a link in the description if you want to find out more. It's our special way of giving benefits to our members, and it's your way of helping me run YouTube. Okay, I've talked enough. Let's bring on Ian. So if you don't know Ian Pulka, I went back. Hi, Intrepid Exotics. Thanks for joining us. I went back to Facebook, and I wanted to find out how long.
Southern Raised Exotics.
What's that?
Southern Raised is here too.
Hey, Southern Raised Exotics. Thanks for joining us.
There's a smudge on your cubby shirt.
There is. What? Oh no, it doesn't come up. Isn't this kind of weird where I've got the hockey and the baseball? So I wanted to find out how long I've known Ian, because I thought, man, it's got to be like, gosh, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. It feels like I've known him for 20 years because I've seen his posts all over the place. Geckos Unlimited. Oh my gosh, remember that? Rapashi Forum. all those different forms. But I went back to find out the first message that he and I exchanged, and it was back in 2016. 2016, that doesn't seem like that long ago. I know that we've known each other way back before that, but I tell you, Ian is a special friend because number one, his interests are as eclectic as mine are. Number two, he's just a good guy. And I tell you, the very first time that you talked to him, the second sentence that you talked to him about, it's like he's your best friend. He's just that good of a guy. This is going to be a fun discussion. I think Ian and I are the same in so many ways, except for one, and that's it might not appear this way in the live stream, but I am extremely introverted. Extremely. It costs me a lot of energy and to do these live streams. So when you talk about stress and everything, I get done with these live streams. It's like, oh my God, I'm so tired now. So I'm down in the facility all day. I'm on social media and that's cool, but doing person to person is a lot of stress for me. Ian could walk into a room, Ian could walk into a room where he knows nobody and be everybody's best friend, like two sentences. So, okay, now I've really talked enough. Let's see how Ian's audio is. I hope everything's okay. Everybody can hear me though, right? So we're okay there. I'm going to add Ian. Let's see how it goes. Ian, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Dear Lord, I want to thank you so much for this evening.
Wally!
This is a beautiful thing. So it's always stressful, meet me 10 minutes before the show. Let's see if everything works. And when something doesn't work, usually it's like a 1 minute fix. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, well, hold on. Let's just go out and come back in. And, oh, there we go. We're all cool. And Ian really went above and beyond to try to get this going. So, gosh, Ian, I really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for working on that for us and joining us tonight.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting up with me. I honestly, I don't know why. Like I said, right before this, I was live on the other app, and everybody could hear me. It was just weird. So we switched to the laptop now. We're good. The only trick is that some of what I was going to show you guys was going to be me moving the phone around to show you. So we'll make it work. But I have plenty right here ready, so we're good.
Just had to go like this. Okay, in this enclosure right back here.
Right. If I could just say really quickly, two things. Number one, I saw you, Angelica. Devin and Angelica, they got married. I was in their wedding, and it was actually awesome. And I miss you guys, and not just you. If anybody else is there from the Sacramento shows, the Pomona shows, I miss all of you. People always say, now that you moved to Georgia, what do you miss? And it's not the weather. It's none of that really does it. It's the people, the reptile people. I mean, so most of my friends, your friends you stay in touch with on the phone. The reptile people, I would talk to them at the show. Sarah Sonorum's that's my favorite from New Caledonia. Absolutely. But yeah.
I was chatting with Ian before the show, and I said, you know me, our viewers know me. I'm organized and I'm anal, and I like things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Even though none of our shows go according to my scripts, but I have to be prepared beforehand. So I have about 15 questions.
Pages,
yes, 16 pages. Maybe it's not 16 pages. So I'm doing this, and he messages me and with pictures, and then I say, oh, I'm writing the script. And then I sat back and thought, I don't think we need a script tonight. I don't think there's any way that we couldn't talk for 4 hours without a script. So I have my notes, I have my script here, and I'm going to make sure that I ask a couple of these questions. And we are going to do hit it or quit it at the end with you.
Don't tell them anything about it.
Okay, I won't tell them anything about it. We'll make it a surprise.
I feel like I should have taken shots.
You should have. Maybe after this, you're going to give me a shot. I don't know.
Oh, anytime. And just so you know, I think you're right. I think that we could probably have quite a few discussions. And I was going to throw it out there. If you ever want to do like a series, it'd be a little easier if we said, okay, let's do New Caledonia this time. Okay, let's do just your lizards this time. Let's do just your, whatever.
I think that is a wonderful idea, and I'm doing a little bit of that with isopods, and I'm doing a little bit of that with crested geckos, and I think you and I could kind of touch base on some rares, and maybe bring in a couple of other people, and we can kind of go the circle with maybe rare geckos. Maybe I think that's a great idea, and really dive into the details. So let's start off the show. Let me ask you. So I'm going to pull right from my script here, and then probably I'm going to throw the script right away. Let me ask you. Tell me not about Ian the Gecko Keeper. Don't tell me about your business. Tell me about you. Tell me some things about you that maybe people wouldn't know about you.
Oh, not reptile related.
Yeah, can't be reptile related.
Okay.
We're going to get to that stuff later.
Okay. Something a lot of my reptile friends actually don't know is that a long time ago, when everybody was making fun of me on Facebook, I joined TikTok, and it was supposed to, and hear me out because I'm not breaking the rule, it was supposed to be reptile lives. And really quickly, what happened was back then it was a lot easier to give gifts and which were money and things like that. And while I was trying to show people baby gargoyles, and I was trying my hardest to be kind of like you, believe it or not, I get my little moments. That was like one of my first lives, maybe 10 lives into it. I'm sitting there trying to be serious about this, and one of my friends decided to say, "Hey, here's a big gift," and it was a big gift. It was like a $40 gift. I need you to take a shot with me. So I said, "Okay." So basically that kind of kept up, and I don't even know how many shots I took that night. But to give you an idea, it turned out I had, and at the time this was actually pretty huge, I had about 30,000 followers, and it was a combination. To me, this is the best, and I'll say it right now, a combination of reptile lovers, pranksters, and drinkers. And you get those three together, and so the lives stopped being about reptiles, and they started being more about the videos are often about geckos, but the lives are basically just practical jokes. So there's one thing. If you're ever up late, I'm about to start back up. It'll be a Friday night or Saturday night. If you see me live and you're just like, I had a crappy day, or I just need to get a break from the week or whatever, that's the live to go to. So there's one thing. Another thing, I was actually really involved in, gosh, I got so many things I could say right now. I also collect a lot of plants, and I've often traded some of the stuff that I breed too much of. I say too much, meaning, I just get an abundance for plants, rarer plants. Just throwing that out there. And then I think the only other thing I'm going to throw out right now, because believe me, there's a lot I could say, and I know anybody that's from TikTok is going, oh, he's got way worse than that, is been working for the State Department of Healthcare Services. I worked there for over a decade being an analyst. And I think that's really important because when you get to the level I got, which was pretty high, in fact, it was more than the managers would make, the chiefs, you can't help but do it in everything else. I cannot help but analyze everything. I will see a Facebook post or a YouTube or a TikTok that I'm going, this makes no sense. It's dumb. And then in my head, I'm going, but wait, that data looks right. That data makes sense. And I'll start to actually second guess myself knowing it's a joke, but still I just kind of, I can't help it. So that applies to everything I do, whether it's geckos, plants, my wife. I analyze her like nuts. And while I can say I've been working with geckos my whole life, the truth of the matter is that I have to take off about 4 years that we can go into later when we are talking about reptiles. But I do think it's a pretty good story for people.
Sure you don't want to go into it now?
We can if you want. It's up to you.
Feel free.
Okay.
Sounds like a great segue.
I'm going to give you guys the quick story of artificer geckos, if you will, because it was kind of funny. To most of the people in the world of Facebook and such, it came out of nowhere. They were like, never heard of this guy. Wait, this guy's breeding this. What what did I miss in all this? So what happened was I've literally been doing geckos as far back as I can remember. In fact, if you think about yourself as a toddler, I should say reptiles, if you think about your memory, you have these flashes. You can't remember everything. But my dad, and that says a lot because they got divorced when I was I was before elementary school. But my dad had bought me a long-tailed gecko. Just a plain long-tailed gecko and a hermit crab, two different things. And I loved them. And I took care of them as a kid. The reality, when I think back, is I'm pretty sure my parents were taking care of them. But I was holding it. I was messing with it. By 5th grade, I had a spiny-tailed iguana. And I really loved the reptiles. I worked with them. And then by chance, I ended up with a neighbor. And everybody here, I think, is too young to know who he is. But one of my neighbors ended up being a guy named Jody Hicks. And he worked with he was an importer. Because back then, don't judge me. Back then, you could not get captive bred except for maybe a leopard gecko. Not even bearded dragons. Those were still coming in. And so with that being said, my mom was very smart. She set this rule up. The rule was simple. If it's before if the lights outside on the street turn on, you come home. Mm-hmm. Unless you're over at Jody's. You're allowed to stay there as late as you want, as long as you call me and let me know when you're on your way home. So I would go play with my friends, and as soon as I knew it was getting close to lights out time, I'd run over to Jody's and hang out there for another 2 or 3 hours so I didn't have to go home. So that literally went on all the way up to where I was actually graduating high school, and the friendship went on even longer. But I mean, for a while there, I was doing all his runs when he would get something in, and it was going to a pet store out in Citrus Heights, a lot of different places. I would drive the animals, and we're talking about animals I still barely ever see. Ambanja chameleons that were just nothing but purple. Back then, there weren't limits on all the different chameleons. I had quadricornis, I had fishers, I had all these things. So I'd worked with all these things. And as I got older, he trusted me with more responsibility, leaving me at the facility when he went away for a 3-day Memorial Day weekend. I was doing all of that. So anyways, I go through that phase. And then by the time I'm single, I say single, but by the time I'm what you would call a bachelor, my own place, everything, yeah. I have my fair share of reptiles. And then I did something terrible. And I need the females in this chat to understand that this applies to them too. I met a girl. And the girl I met didn't like reptiles. She was scared of reptiles. And this ended up, at first she was fine with it. Just a warning. Often they're really cool with it when they first meet you because that's that whole first foot forward thing. But over time it became a bit of a battle. It wasn't worth it. You know, this was the woman I thought I was going to marry, and I did marry. And so I did end up taking ultimately about a 4-year break because she didn't like the reptiles. So fast forward, through the divorce, all that. And I meet my wife a few years later, who is, we're together. I don't believe we're married yet, but we're talking, and the reptile show in Sacramento was coming. And so she was like, "You like reptiles?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "I love them. I used to breed them like crazy." So I'm with you, J-Bug. So me and the wife, I'd honestly, I hadn't forgotten about them, but I wasn't about to try to bring a bunch of geckos in the house. So I went, and it wasn't even geckos at that point. But I went to the show, and we got into the gargoyles because, and this is actually a little known fact, but you said no reptiles, so. Go for it. I was going with my friend. I went with a friend of mine, and he got a crested gecko. I had promised him that if we went into all this, if we got really into it again, because we've had a couple conversations by now and everything, I would never sell crested geckos. Because I never wanted to be at a booth with him, competing with him. We were buddies. So we kind of had this thing where I was like, I'll never do cresteds. I'm going to try this thing over here called a gargoyle. At this point, if anybody here wants to cry, I want to say I paid $55 for it. Wow. And they couldn't really tell me much about it. They were like, well, it's kind of like a cresty, but it's this and this. They really didn't have a lot of info on them. And so I started doing the gargoyles. That's where it started. And to give you an idea of how unusual they were back then, I actually had to wait. It took me about 4 months to find a female. You know, it wasn't like it is now where you could go pretty much anywhere, and at least if you know where you're going, you'll find one.
Yep.
So long story short, because my wife was into it too and supported me, I was able to start doing this again. And I started breeding the gargoyles, which for the record, I could not sell for $75 a piece, even the reds at that point, because everybody had no idea what it was. But I also started to do corn snakes. I had corn snakes breeding and a lot of other things. I started to build up.
Yeah.
Then as I started to keep going, I made a friend and another friend, and one of them doesn't like me to throw out their name, but I made another friend, Frank. For those that don't know Frank, you need to get to know him. Get his YouTube channel on your thing, Reptilian Diaries. I promise you, he is who I go to when I really want to verify if something I have isn't anywhere in the U.S. He's like the Godfather, okay? And when you see his videos, you'll understand that because he goes there. He doesn't just bring them in. He goes and sees how these things live in the wild. So Frank got me a pair of piguensis, which are, if you don't know what those are, they'll be on my pages often enough because they're constantly chirping at night. They sound like a bird. Might happen tonight. And so those bred. Well, as I started breeding these rarer things, I started trading other people for their rarer things. So in a period of, I think, 3 years, I found myself with all kinds of rare geckos that I didn't realize they were as rare as they were, but I had fallen immediately back on the stuff I learned back from the imports. So a lot of these animals, even though there wasn't a lot out there on them, I kind of had a general, this is what Ian does when he gets this kind of animal or this kind of animal. You know, I had stuff to fall back on.
Yes.
And so that, long story short, there is just that suddenly out of the blue, people are like, I don't know who this, at that point it was just Ian, who this Ian guy is, but he has, you know, he's breeding the mossy leaf-toed geckos, the Sakura, like crazy, and he's got satanics, and he's doing all these different things. And it was really funny because I went from that little guy with a gargoyle gecko to all these other much harder ones. And it was great. It was just, it's what life's about, making memories and having a great time.
How much of a time period was that from going from, okay, I'm keeping maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or however many gargoyles to I'm keeping satanic, I'm keeping Scuriae, and I'm breeding them. How long of a time period was that, Ian?
It was really about 3 years.
That's incredible.
It was about 3 years. But what was really neat is back then there were a lot less people doing the rarer geckos.
Yes.
And so, you know, I say Sarah Sonorum, most people know what they are now.
Yep.
I have one behind me that I'm going to introduce you guys to later here. He is going on 15 years old. And so back then, a lot of people, including Frank and a couple others, started to realize, hey, he's got some pretty good stuff. I wonder how he'd do with this. So all of a sudden, instead of me going to the shows, these people were reaching out to me saying, hey, I think you do good with this one. Hey, I think you do good with that one. And so, I mean, to give you an idea, just one example, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Jordan Russell, but at one point, Jordan literally handed me, and it was fun. This was great, guys, because I had said I will not buy more than 3 geckos. I promised Misty, my wife, Misty. He handed me like 10 containers with geckos from a reptile show that was ending and said, you know what? You're the only one who's going to know how to keep these alive anyways. Just take them. And that started to kind of happen. Frank has done that with me before with certain animals. I think it's kind of like a test to them too. It's like, well, can he do it? And for some of the people who know what they are, because I know some of these people are going to want to kill me because I'm not doing them anymore. The ones that Jordan had handed me were the Gyra oceanicus, which a lot of people now, out of the blue, when I was breeding them, no one wanted them, but now a lot of people have asked me if I have any oceanicas. That's where I had gotten them from, and I did breed them for about, 8 years. So
unbelievable. So let me ask you this, and I've found that true with a lot of the animals lately, and I've said this on Facebook, Cyrtodactylus and some of the Periodora, they were in the hobby, now they're not. You can barely find them anymore. Right. Why did you get out of some of these animals that are, something that we look at now and say, oh my gosh, if I could just keep those animals and breed them right now, It would be so cool. Why did you get out of those animals?
For starters, room at my old place, we had hit a point where my living room, I should have given you those photos to show. Our living room had become a reptile room basically, but our living room was really big and it had like a nook. And so we had tanks just in that nook all the way across, 3 racks, 3 levels high. And then I had some in a bedroom, a spare bedroom, and some on this little island in our hallway. And it was just out of control because I was breeding too. And at this point I'm doing shows. But once you get some of these guys locked in, it's 2 or 3 geckos a week if you're really being, careful. So you have to make room for the little ones too. You can't just go, okay, I've got all the ones I love in these big tanks. I'm good, because then you find yourself, 3 months, 2 months later going, uh-oh, they all bred. Where do I put all the babies? So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was just moving to Georgia. Moving to Georgia, I had to downsize. And yeah, that was something in itself.
Well, tell us about that move. I've always dreaded. In fact, we moved. How many years ago did we move? 25?
23 or 4.
23, 24 years ago. I was heavily into fish. We had 125 different fish tanks downstairs, up to 125 gallons, lots of 50s. So we were kind of working through that whole move decision. So I called a friend and said, hey, we're moving. Come take whatever you want, and I need this out. He goes, we're going to post it, and we're going to get Chicago up. We'll help you, and you'll sell. You're not just going to give all this stuff away. And we sold, one weekend, we sold all the fish and all the equipment. It was cleared. Everything was cleared, because I didn't want to go through the process of moving 125 tanks. So
Right.
You tell me how you did this big move, not just, across town like we did. How did you move across country?
Right. Okay. So, first of all, there is videos out there on that I'm going to put on my YouTube channel that I actually just really set up. And it's mostly going to be things of the past, but just the fact that you're not so time limited. I can give how did I build this tank? How did I do this? But just a real quick summary is I went and I bought a whole bunch of these, actually. Let's see here. You're going to laugh, but these. Just cereal.
Oh, sure.
Fingers.
Okay.
Okay. And what I did is I made basically micro habitats, complete with, if it was a like a gargoyle gecko, I took a piece of cork bark, I cut it to size so that it was in there, it wasn't coming out, but there was still a way for the gecko to get under or over it. And I repeated for the sand ones. I tended to use my flat Tupperware bins versus a big cereal one. But long story short, I put together these micro habitats because you're right. It wasn't just a 4-day trip. It was actually, I want to say it was a total of 12 days in the end, because
Oh my gosh.
we moved here, but this house had a few extra days for them to empty out. You know how you have your contracts. We were staying at a camping site in a trailer. And so I was literally taking some of my things, some of my lizards, because some of my lizards, you don't go that long without UVB. You just know. So I give you an idea. I had a false chameleon pair. I put them every morning at the campsite. I'd put them outside in these little mini screen things. I actually have a few here. They fold up and they pop open. And I would take a water bottle and I would turn it sideways on it and just release the cap just enough for drips.
Okay.
From the water bottle. So every morning I was doing this, and it was like moving every freaking day at a campsite. Fortunately in Georgia, so it wasn't cold, and it wasn't too hot. This was in October, November. I say that because it went across both months. But I also learned a lot during that trip. And like I said, I have videos. We finally decided we're going to sleep. And as we're lying down in the car doing this, because Misty was like, I can't go anymore. And I'm like, I'm exhausted. After about 10 minutes, I start to fall asleep. And all of a sudden I hear Misty go, I can't sleep. We're going to keep going. So I'm exhausted, but she's like, we're going to keep going. And I don't want to fall asleep on her. So we get back up. We go for like another 2 hours, and now she's like, no, I'm really dead tired. Okay. But we decide we're going to go lay down in the camper, because the way the camper was is it was just, a small trailer. We go into the camper, we get into the bed, we lie down. Keep in mind, during the day, my wife's tortoises are all over the bed in Tupperware bins, big, long bins. But we get them off. We finally get to bed after about 40 minutes of moving things. Wally, I am not joking. Like 5 minutes into it, that's a very Misty thing to do. Better. We start to fall asleep, and out of the blue, I'm not going to say a bad word, the darned Peguensis decides it's time to start chirping.
No.
It is in one of those little bins in an ice chest. For any of you who have never heard this, a Peguensis sounds like your fire alarm smoke detector when it's low on batteries. When it's running out of batteries. It's just like loud, sharp whistle. And so me and Misty just started, I think out of how tired we were,
I get it.
We just started to like laugh in bed, just like someone shoot me, and that kept us up for another 30, 45 minutes. And finally we fall asleep. But that's like one out of so many different crazy things that happened on that trip that it was crazy, because you learned from California. Sorry. We learned that they aren't as worried as you are, because I was stressing the whole time. Meanwhile, this Peguensis is calling out for love. So they don't stress as much as you think you should. Take care of them, but they're going to be okay. And I also learned, because when we got here, I had a whole bunch of eggs, and every single egg hatched, including, believe it or not, a Europlatus Guntherite. So I mean,
unbelievable.
All hatched. So I don't buy into that whole, if the egg gets shooken a little too much or whatever. Because let me tell you, I wanted to be as careful as I was, but driving across country, you hit some potholes, and those eggs got airborne. So yeah.
My concern would be, you mentioned a good point about UVB. You've covered the water. You're obviously feeding isn't really the big problem there. You feed them when you can. And if they go for a couple, 3-4 days without eating, it's not that big of a deal. But my concern would be temperature. My concern would be, how am I going to keep some of these animals with any kind of a gradient, but at least warm enough to sustain over 2 weeks or so.
So the bins that they were, I double did it. They were in the cookie or the cereal box things in ice chests, foam ice chests.
Okay.
In those foam ice chests, I had the hand warmers. I didn't want anything too crazy. I was really doing this on not a budget, but I'm not going to go too deep on how much I spend on moving them, because we were buying a house and I knew I was going to have to buy a bunch of tanks. I don't keep any of my reptiles in anything but tanks. So I was trying to be as careful as I would, Neil Meister. Wow, I haven't seen that.
Right. How about that name? Neil, thank you very much for joining us. I am honored. I have Ian and I have Neil on the show. I've dropped Fant eggs from 1.5 feet up, and they still hatched.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So yeah, that was how I did that. As far as UV, like I said, the ones that I knew had to have it, I put them outside in the morning hours. Our trailer does have AC. It's a camper, a full camper. So there was that. I think what stressed me out more than anything was the cold, because at one point we had to go over the Rockies. And this was in late October. And so it was cold. But I've always, and I learned this from really wise people, from Frank to Joe Hub, a couple others. I learned that the cold isn't going to do it. The cold, if it's just for a small period of time, they'll typically be okay. And the truth is, the Rockies, in the big scheme of things, the Rockies were a small part of that trip. It was only a couple of hours getting over the cold part. So, Neil, if I remember right, that's where my Sarah Sonorum originally came from, the big one.
Wow.
Actually. That's how long ago it was.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going back to, Geckos Unlimited and some of the ways that we used to communicate back then. It's a different ballgame now because our time is limited, or else I would have said something like, now you just keep a gecko for a couple of weeks and you're the expert on Facebook. Whereas back then, see, I shouldn't have doggone it. I shouldn't have said that. And it's in no disrespect to some of the viewers here that really know their stuff, because I've talked to just about everybody in the chat here, but it is what it is. Anyways, Wally, move on. I can't imagine the stress that I would be under traveling that far.
I wouldn't travel with you.
I'd have to do my spread. Oh, my lights are out. I'd have to do my spreadsheets on my phone and making sure that I track everybody. It would be nuts. So I give you a ton of credit for making a move like that, a successful move like that. That's just crazy.
And his wife.
I felt terrible. And I'll tell you why I felt terrible. Because every speed bump, every pothole, whatever it was that Misty hit, every time Misty hit one along the drive, I would just do this. And the poor thing is like, I didn't make the roads, but you can't help it in that moment. You want to be mad at somebody, and as we all know, being mad at the government for something gets you nowhere. So Misty was driving; she just kind of caught the wrath.
Did she give you the look back, like, dude, come on, dude?
She really would go, I didn't make the roads, Ian. I didn't make the roads. And actually, if it's cool, I want to grab this and show Neil.
Yeah, very cool. And while you're doing that, I'll say, if Misty is in the room right now or watching later, Misty, thank you for getting this all going for Ian, because I know that you didn't do it yourself, getting the sound working.
Oh, no.
Thank you.
This is what happens when you get somebody who has the same passions as you. And if that's something I do go into in TikTok a lot, I'll tell people, you can sit there and go, well, I like them, but I really like to do this, and they don't like it, whether it's fishing, whatever it is. If you find someone who likes what you love, Misty has a tortoise fortress out back because she loves tortoises. 700 plus square feet for Hermans.
Oh, wow.
For Hermans. But she loves them that much, And so the two of us, we go to a show and we're like two kids at Toys R Us that are 6 and just wanting to play, So
that's cool. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. Misty, if you want to come up and say hi real quick, that would be really awesome.
Don't have to, but that would be cool if you want to. That'd be super cool. I love the room setup with all the plants, and
I like
the blue light I would start playing like Pink Floyd music, and I'd make those lights kind of flicker a little, maybe not flicker, but go in and out.
I have that in my live room where I do TikTok lives, but here I don't want to give the geckos something to freak out about. So there's 2 lessons to this. Number 1, on the web, you always see people say, Cerassonorums are too crazy, they're too flighty, they're too whatever.
Yep.
This is the one, Neil. This actually, when I bought it, I didn't get it directly from you. I got it from someone else. It was about a year old, but it was from you. The person had shown me. You remember that? And so this is your crazy, I'm gonna go nuts gecko. He's wondering about the light, but as you can see, and if you look at him, he's looking at the light. Now my wife's gonna take him. But that's him, Neil. 15 years old at this point.
15. Isn't that something?
Wow. I'm going to turn the light away. I think it's kind of stopping you from being able to see it too well. How's that?
Lights are hard. Lights are so hard on geckos and photos and showing them on YouTube. And that's so cool. And it's not.
This is nighttime. He's even chiller at shows. I'll have him on my hat at shows all day.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I'd like to hear from the viewers who has never ever seen a Cerassonorum, because I want to tell you, when you pull out a Cerassonorum, usually most keepers, they're all the way to the back of the room like that. They're day gecko, giant day gecko-ish, fast and crazy and squirrely. So that's so cool to see.
It's a cool piano.
Yeah, and at the shows, he'll be like this. I will really be at the shows just like that. He just doesn't like that bright light.
Yeah.
So, But I have I actually have the white collars too. This is my buddy. He's our ride or die. He goes with us. He was the first one I ever got. And my wife will sit there and show people, don't be afraid of him. He's not going to go nuts. Exactly about being afraid of them. I have the white collars. I have them all, and I do work with them. But it's it's a matter of they live so long that you're really dealing with a teen for the first 2 to 4 years, and they're like teenagers. I'm not going to lie; they go through mood swings when they're in that age. But I've had gargoyles that do that too. So,
I
you want to
strongly feel.
My wife's gonna just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want me to put more?
No, I'll put him away. He's moving to a different thing.
Hi.
Hi, Misty. How are you doing?
Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for fixing any problems that Ian had with the volume and the audio and everything.
Oh, no problem. Glad to help.
Much
I'm
appreciated.
more like you in the sense that Ian's the social one. But I was watching from downstairs. I was like, oh, and I work in IT. I have not figured out how to comment or anything on this because I was gonna watch it from my computer, but now my computer's
it's gone. We confiscated it.
Oh.
So I'm a fellow IT person as well. So us IT people are geeky and we like to be in our rooms, throw us a pizza and a Diet Coke once in a while, and we're good for 8 to 12 hours.
That's all I've got to do.
That's all you have. You've known that forever. Give me a couple of slices of pizza and a Diet Coke, and I'm good for 4 hours.
That sounds good right
Yeah,
about now.
that does sound good.
Yep, I will. So that trip, one thing Ian did not mention to you is that we made a stop in LA, and so when we stopped in LA, he bought 1,000 crickets.
Oh no!
And we were driving a Yukon, pulling a trailer. I do all the driving because I get car sick. And I'm afraid of crickets. I'm afraid of bugs. Really? Yes, I don't do bugs. I'll take any of these geckos, snakes, but not bugs.
Wow.
So I am cruising along, and he had left the bag kind of open so that they could get some air and not die, right? Makes sense for people who do this. But we also had our cat in the truck. And so what happened, the cat found the crickets, let all the crickets out. She was having a blast. We were happy because the cat was being quiet. We didn't know why, but we were like, thank goodness, because traveling with a cat. And then pretty soon I'm like, what's on my leg? And I'm driving.
Oh my God.
And I'm freaking out. And so it's crickets. There's crickets everywhere. I was like, we are going to die.
Oh my gosh.
So we had to pull over into a truck stop, open all the doors, and get all the crickets out because I was like, we are going to die. So I forgot about that.
I did forget about that. Okay.
I cannot imagine that. You're driving and feeling something weird. You look down and it's something that you dreadfully hate with a passion. But I can't imagine. I can't imagine that bag open and the cat's like, "Game on, man! This is going to be fun. Let's go. Let the games begin."
A moth, if we're out back, a moth will send her running in the house.
Oh,
like that! It's that level. So for her to be surrounded by crickets, that was a nightmare.
And not cause a car accident. I'm impressed because I probably would have shifted really fast.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't know. I'm wondering if you can even see. Like I said, the original plan was to have my mobile phone.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Oh. Really nice.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to show you, just because it's one of my newer hatches. This is a This is a Hemidactylus prashadi.
Oh, sure. Can you take that one out and hold it for us so that we can get a better look? Don't you do that. Don't you do that.
You'd be surprised. I'll do it. I'll do it with the bigger ones.
Oh my gosh. So of all of my geckos, not that I have thousands, but of all of my geckos, that's the one that I'm really afraid of. I'm afraid of going into their enclosure and looking for eggs and moving anything, because most geckos will give you that look. Most geckos you can sense when they're going to move. These guys will be just sitting there like on that, and the next second they're across the room with no indication that they're going to move. That's how fearful I am of that animal.
You know, mine aren't too bad. The problem is they will decide suddenly to bite. They don't.
Okay.
They don't really warn you. I thought you were gonna say, when you said they just sit there really nice, I thought you were gonna say they're just real still, and all of a sudden they go for your finger. I've actually had the adults do that a couple times, where I honestly think they're sleeping. They're so still, and then just boom. But when I work with them when they're young, they're not too bad. That one's just too young that I've even probably gotten it to where it even has learned not to freak out on me.
Okay. Okay. I don't want to work with mine. I'm just so over the top afraid of them getting out, and I know there's not that many of this gecko in captivity, so I just worry about that. I need to. Yes. Need to work more with them to get some eggs. I'm just so afraid of going into their enclosure.
Right.
I now need to know where that enclosure is.
Okay. Well, it's the one that we set up on Alive downstairs, the one closest to the door. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful animals, especially the babies when they hatch out. They're so cool.
Right. I have quite a few, but I just figured I know some people come in because they want to, talk, but other people might want to see an animal. So I'm just trying to,
I'm going to show some of the pictures that you sent me in just a minute. Tell us a little bit about, I don't know if it's hobby or business, but like how many enclosures are you, just to give us some kind of a reference, give us an idea of the number of enclosures, how many different species you're keeping. Are you keeping only geckos or all kinds of different reptiles?
Mostly geckos. I do have a few lizards. I did. These are more babies. These are the. Let me see if I can get it to work.
Sure.
Sorry, it's so much easier with a phone. Let's see. This little guy right here is Tachydromus marginis.
Okay.
Now these guys are a little different. Can you hand me that? Never mind. That cup right there. Oh, she's counting. I'm sorry. She's counting tanks to tell you. 1 second. This guy, typically, let's see if we can get lucky here. This guy is almost always all about the belly. I'm going to try this. We'll see what happens. Come on. He might be a little bit. He might be being shy because of the light. These guys are the only ones that I can literally hold the dish up and have them all over my arms. And I have pictures and videos of this on my page. But I think he's kind of freaked out by the light and also the diurnal.
Yeah.
But if you go to my Facebook page, they're on there, and I don't even have to coax them. All I do is go like this, and they all come to the front and they climb onto my hand and just start munching. And at that moment, they don't care if you hold them all day long because you didn't grab them. They came to you, and that's something I've learned with a lot of these guys. They don't want to be held. They want to hold you.
Yeah. They want to be in control. Yeah. Our good friend Ariel from Aerotonics, I don't know if you know him, from Chicago. He works with a lot of gargoyles and cresteds and chihuahuas, but he walks around shows with a day gecko, two-day geckos, just on his arm, and he'll walk up to you, the jerk, and he'll take and the first time he did this to me, it's like, don't do that. And he takes it off of his arm and he puts it on mine. It's like, it's going to run. And it just sits there like, what do you want? This is what I do. And it's just so freaking crazy that he's tamed them so much by working with them day in and day out. They just sit there and they're chill the whole time. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Did you count?
Definitely over 120.
Tanks?
Yeah.
Over 120 enclosure. She stopped at 120.
Oh my God.
So really quickly to explain the layout, you are in right where my door opens, okay? So this goes all the way back there, and then basically it's a big square U. Same thing as this, but on that side of this wall right here. And that wall is just because that's the stairway up.
Okay.
And then behind you, if you were literally to just keep walking towards this screen and make a turn, is a whole nother hallway. This is basically an attic that I've done a lot of work on. It really is. In fact, I don't know if it'll pick it up in the dark. No, it won't. Oh yeah, you can. You can see it right there is where it's not painted. You see that grayish up at the top?
Yep. Yes.
So it really was just an attic. I love you, Amanda Panda. I adore you. Thank you for coming. So this really was just it was like a sewing room. I think she kept, but not a sewing room as much as she kept most of her materials up here. But it wasn't even. It was so hot in here. I don't think she could have been sewing. It was just an attic. So
how does that work for the animals then?
Well, I've got it figured out now. It took a while to hone in, but like I'm looking for my thermometers, which are all around here. I just don't see any, of course, because I'm doing this.
I got you, Seth, in just a second. Okay.
So basically, this area right here runs about 74, 75. Okay. That way, towards the window, kind of contrary to what you would think, is where I keep my cave geckos and such. That area gets even cooler. That area will get like 68 to 72-ish.
Okay.
And then around that corner is what I call my Cyrtodactylus rain, which is, as you know, not as cold as some of your other ones, but they still like it kind of, not hot, not reptile hot. Now behind you is a whole nother window, and that room gets hot. That area does get warm. So what it really comes down to is that I hate doing it backwards. Right there, that window you see over there.
Yeah.
There's an AC on it. Okay. It keeps the room at a certain temperature. As you get towards the hot tanks, and I say hot tanks meaning the tanks with the heat pads and all that, you start to get warmer in that nook. Thanks to the U, it actually works out well. If it was just a big series, I don't think it would.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
That's some good planning.
Oh, it took a while, but I figured it. I tried originally with the AC on the side behind you I'm talking about. That didn't go so well. And then I realized it's the U. The U somehow manages to just keep the heat over there while it still takes the AC over here. So
do you have any, curious, now this is a question just, selfishly from me. Do you have any fans running to kind of circulate the air?
Oh yeah, everywhere.
Okay.
I'm surprised you can't hear them. There's these fans. I got to tell you, I bought them on Amazon and they're cheap. They're like $30, okay? But they mount on your wall. So I have them up high, and they basically oscillate the air all around. I put one on this corner, one on over there by the AC, one over in the other corner of the U. And so you get what's funny is I think one of the things I hear the most is people are shocked. That analyst, exactly. I think a lot of people are shocked when they walk in here and it smells like moss. Oh, I don't know if can you hear that?
Yes. Who is that?
Is that
Misty? Is that Misty yelling at you?
That's my Galaxy Tokay.
Holy cow.
How far away is it?
How far?
10 feet.
It's
10 feet.
About 10 feet. But it's on the other side.
Hold on. Okay, the second word is you. I can't tell what that first word is.
Who was it that was telling me about this?
Coming from a Tokay, probably.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That is crazy.
terrible.
I'm going to hit Seth's question because I'm going to forget it.
They wanted to know what.
Oh, you can forget Seth's question.
No, it was
I knew
somebody
you would
else.
say that.
They wanted to know what kind of gecko you were holding earlier that you had up on your hat.
Oh,
A Saracenorum.
Okay.
So just to be clear, Seth can totally call me and ask me these questions. But one really cool thing, Seth actually tamed a gargoyle gecko to the point where it would sit on the top of the laptop screen while Seth would do a World of Warcraft raid for like 3 hours.
Oh my
and I have
God.
photos of that too.
That's cool.
a Tokay, you're saying. That's nuts. That's crazy.
If this was one of my lives, I would do it. But I'm not doing it in here because if something goes wrong, I'm going to feel just bad. Pokemon Toge, right?
I would feel bad because when we would talk in the future, like 2, 3, 4 years, every single conversation would start with, remember that time you had me take out that gecko and it got loose? I've still not found it.
Yeah.
How did you, and this is kind of a question that I was asked once, and I didn't really know. I was put on the spot, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do that to a fellow gecko keeper. I was asked, how did you transition from crusteds and gargoyles and leopard geckos to goniatoides and goniosaurus? And how did you make that transition to, I think I want to keep this really weird, stupid gecko that nobody else, couple, 3 people have in the country, because it's not a good business decision and you can't see it because it's this big. But you are keeping it. So how did you make that transition?
Okay, so can I give you a couple answers in this one? Because it's really important, and I think a lot of the people in here that I've seen at least would appreciate this. Both sides. First of all, I decided, my wife's trying to derail me. I'm sorry. First of all, respect the live woman. First of all, I never had Cresties, like I mentioned, and just so you know, I've never bred. I should have said this earlier, but we had some no reptile facts. I've never bred Beardies, Cresties, Balls. There's one more I'm trying to think of that people often ask me about. So I didn't make a transition from there. Leopard geckos. I didn't make a transition from there. I had worked with so many things back in the day with Jody at the importers that those weren't really on my radar. Now, if I'm being honest, when I started to get back in it, the first thing that was on my radar were the Phelsuma, all the day geckos. That's what I really liked right when I first started, but I found that they were harder to get than back when they were imported, especially the blues. So
I've got to ask, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but
yeah.
I have 2 questions, really. I'm sorry, or else I'll forget this, Ian.
Yeah.
The day geckos, the Phelsuma, were you working with Julie Bergman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Oh
At the beginning, she hadn't heard of me. But to be honest, quite a bit of it at that time was Linda Switzer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Linda's wonderful. Wonderful person. I got like all my Lygodactylus from her because she kept Lygodactylus like crazy. Cool.
Yeah. I actually got some of my electrics from her, the blues, and bred them out like crazy. I was actually, and it turned out that a frog breeder, a dart frog breeder, was the one who kept buying them from me, but I didn't realize it. And then we became really good friends. A gentleman who's not doing the shows anymore, which really makes me sad. Yeah. So, do you want me to finish that?
Let me ask real quick for myself. The Jody, was that Jody Ahern?
No? You mean the importer?
Yes.
Jody Hicks.
I'm sorry, you said that. Okay, never mind.
His company's name was Leaping Lizards. Not Leaping Lychees. I've had people say Leaping Lychees. No, Leaping Lizards.
I know the company. I don't know. I probably have seen Jody, and I've never looked at the last name. But yeah,
very possible.
Yeah.
If you were doing any of this like 30 years ago at this point, around that range, you probably saw him, because to give you an idea, back then we got most of our contacts through Reptile Magazine. So in the actual magazine. Okay. I'm sorry. So
my fault.
No, I'm just trying to remember. Did I make the jump? Oh, so what happened was I realized I wanted to make the jump pretty quickly on, just because I was I was playing with mangrove snakes and you name it. So it wasn't so much of a scary thing for me to try something either mean or something I wasn't familiar with. What I did do, and some of these guys can actually tell you that, including Frank, I used to say, where are they from? And of the animals I have, what's the closest in keeping? So like in the very beginning, it was pretty hard because I'd be like, Frank, how close is this to a gargoyle gecko? Or Jordan, how is this? I'm trying to think of some of the things I got from him. Or Joe Hubb's a really good one. I'd say, Joe, mealy-eye, how hard is it compared to, say, my Heteronotia benoi, things like that. And so it really was helpful. So that's one thing I wanted to throw out for the people that are still kind of going in. Try to find somebody who has something you've kept successfully and ask what's close to it. Don't always go, oh, I want this rare animal. Instead, go to someone and say, like if someone came to me and said, I've been doing cresties and gargoyles, that's all I've ever done, what would you suggest? I'd be like, well, really, if you want to, you've just opened your eye up to a lot of new Caledonian geckos, Saracenorum, Agricolae, Leachianus. There's little differences I've learned, but not enough that you're going to kill it. So don't try to break it right away.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And if you're just keeping them and you're not trying to breed them, you're probably not going to kill them if you've been successful with the others. It's just not. No matter what they tell you on Facebook, I'm going back to what you said, Wally. No matter what they tell you on Facebook, it's not rocket science. It's common sense and paying attention. I used to say it's love, and then on Facebook I got just crucified because saying love suggests that you're saying a reptile feels love. When I say you have to love a reptile, I just mean you have to go to it like a person who loves their car. So they do all their maintenance every time, or keeps it clean. It's that kind of love. And if you love a certain kind of animal, you're going to do great with something similar, which leads to, no, Neil, his name's Jody Hicks.
I keep doing this to you. Sorry.
I had someone else ask me that, though. Apparently there was more than one leaping lizards, but this is literally 30 years ago. So I'm not sure. I know his wife's name was Michelle Hicks. So the other part of that thing, and this goes more towards what I think the breeders will appreciate me saying. Sorry, but I did go to people like Frank and Joe, and I would say, I want the animals for their personality. I didn't want the animals because of how rare they were, how much they were wanted. I wanted the personality. I ended up with the benoi because they're like little raptors. They're parthenogenic. I ended up with the gargoyles because I loved how they hunched over on the branches at night. I ended up with, I was like, what is it about these animals? And to give you an idea, I actually have one Homophilus. Oh my gosh, I just had a blank. Wahlberg guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason I ended up with those is I said, I love the Eurodactylus. I don't like how they tend to have a kind of a angry personality at times. My Wahlbergie don't care. I can pick them up. I can do anything. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They will just sit with me almost like that Saracenorum did earlier. In fact, I have them in here somewhere where I literally picked them up and put them in they don't care. So I really that was why I ended up with them. So instead of saying I want this animal that I see everybody on Facebook showing, instead say, go to someone who knows their reptiles. Frank's a good one. Wally's a good one. Joe Hub's a good one. I'll help you out as much as I can. And say to them, okay, so I've kept this, and this, and I want either A, personality, or B, color, whatever you're looking for, and say, which can I do? Which would be, really a good next step? And always say next step, because if you say the same, you might not learn much.
Yep.
Which leads to what I said I think the breeders will appreciate. I gave Wally a bunch of pictures earlier. We don't really have to do it.
No. You keep talking, and I'm going to work on trying to show those pictures. So.
Okay. So I hope we don't do something bad to the live. Tell you what, while you're trying to see if you can get them up, I'm just going to say this really quickly.
Yeah, please.
I am seeing so many people in here that were the foundation of me starting again after the divorce. And I just can't say it enough. I love you guys. Thank you. My wife's in the background saying you're welcome. Okay, so we're going for the velvets.
Bear with me for just a second.
Yeah,
Whoop.
I saw your screen. I just didn't see I just saw the thumbnails.
I'm just trying to make it as cool.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, there we go. This is probably the best. We'll minimize you and me.
Okay.
And we're looking for velvets. How about this one? Hopefully that's showing up real nice. Okay, it's not
there,
so.
Showing up over on the other screen beautifully.
Yep. Let me get that again.
Person. Tokay is I love them, but Yeah.
Once I get there, everything's cool, but it just takes a second to get there. There we go. Okay. There we go. There's a velvet. There's a velvet for you.
I don't know if it's loading. I'm not seeing. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So do not. I know this is going to kill the breeders, but stick with me on this. Don't say anything. So this is a velvet gecko. Okay. People will say, "I want a velvet gecko." They might say this. Can you go to the next velvet?
Yep.
That.
Whoops.
What are you doing?
I'm just jumping around. There you go. So
That
go ahead.
is. So. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's yeah, that's also another one that people will say, "Hey, I want this." But this, can you take this real quick? I just need to get him. Come on. Of course. I just got pooped on, so bear with me a second.
You have to. Every show you have to get pooped on by a gecko.
Come on.
Sorry, Nanette, I just cut you off.
Yeah, he's just not. He's pooping.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. Calm down. You know who I am. Oh my God! Of course, when I'm trying to do a live, they always get more difficult than usual.
And nobody's ever seen a gecko poop before, so this will be a first for everybody, I'm sure.
A what?
This will be a first for everybody because nobody's seen a gecko poop. That's what they do.
Oh, I'm covered in it. Actually, can you grab me a paper towel?
Yeah.
So as you do that, Ian, I'm going to mention that the velvets are from Australia, and they're just such a very, very, very underrated group of geckos. They're super easy to keep.
Pooped on me.
They're fairly handleable. They lay not a ton of eggs like crested geckos. They're
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to do this real quick because I don't want to poop on the laptop. But here's the Wahlbergie. See, he doesn't like that light at all.
No,
But you'll notice he's not hitting me.
Yeah, he's not biting you. That's not a Wahlberg guy. Look at that look. Like, yeah, I'm cool.
So to the point.
Cool.
Put the lid on. So to the point, that's also a velvet gecko to people, and so is Blazodactylus, and so are about 8 other species. So if we could go back to me, or to us, whatever you want to do for the moment, I just want to say the best tip to people that are just getting into it: figure out which one you want and learn the scientific name. I have caught so much flack because I'll ask for that, but what I don't think people understand is that one I just showed you looks nothing like the first velvet gecko. They're not the same. And so what happens is if you don't use that at least learn the second part of the scientific name, Frank's waffle.
Frank, you just ruined my dinner tonight.
If you don't know the second part of the name, you're going to get people who will say, "Yeah, I have it." And then you go, and this happens to me sometimes, you go to the show and they say they have it and they don't have what you were looking for, or they had no clue. And I can't tell you how many times that's happened with cave geckos. Everybody who's learning still often says they want a cave gecko. And what they really mean is they want a hynenensis, which is your yellow and black cave gecko.
There's only one type of cave gecko, though, right? He says
right, exactly. You help your breeders and others a ton when you say, "I want an orientalis or a boinglenadensis," or whatever, because you're not just helping yourself, because God forbid you're looking for something black and white and you get something black and yellow because they're both cave geckos, but you're helping them too because they know if they have it. Some of these terms are so generic. The good news about New Caledonia is most of them are basically shorthand for their long names. A lychee is a lycheanus. A chahua is a chewy. A saracenorum is often called a Sarah or a Saracen's giant gecko. So that's the good news about that. But, it's a huge difference. And I'm just making sure I have the right one here. Well, sure, this will work. Most people have... Right.
Yep.
So I don't know if you want to show the pictures. We don't really have to. I think most people know what a cave gecko looks like, but just in case.
Let me get over there.
There we go.
There you go.
So here's another thing, but that is a cave gecko. Can we go to the next one?
Yep.
That is a cave gecko. Those are cave geckos.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cave geckos that are black and yellow. The reason I'm pointing that out is because I have seen people think they're being overcharged for one of these because they think it's a hyanensis. In my experience, these guys keep more color longer because a lot of the hyanensis get a little bit more faded with time. Those are actually not babies there. So it just kind of gives you an idea. Is that all of them? I don't know. That might be. Yeah,
Yep.
okay. That's going into the others. Okay. So with that being said, can you go back to the first cave gecko picture? Sorry.
Yep. No, you're fine.
Come on, baby. You're good. I just have to reach down. And a lot of these are in Critter Keepers, so I apologize for having to reach. So that right there, believe it or not, I'm going to turn this down so that you can see it a little better when I pull him out. I don't want him to run away on me. But this little guy right here is that. And if you look, you'll notice a huge color difference.
Okay. I'm going to go back. Check that out, folks.
So as a baby, they have that orangish yellow coloration. But as they get bigger, they fade and they develop spots. Now, honestly, they're one of my favorites because there's a lot of the colors are awesome. But with these guys, the one cool thing is that the colors they get contrast very well to their eyes. So you get one going with some great eyes. It just pops. So there's that. Now there's one more I want to show you from the same thing, another gecko. Bear with me one second. I'm sorry.
Christopher, I love the cave geckos, Gadiosaurus. And people don't realize, but there's a lot of different species. We saw, I don't know, 4 here? There's a lot, and there's a lot of confusion with the Gadiosaurus different species. There's a great site called Gadiosaurus.de, I think it is. It's in English, and it has all kinds of information. It's a little bit older site. I don't think it's updated now, but still great information, great pictures of all of these different types of cave geckos.
Exactly. So if I could just show you this.
Oh, please.
Just because, once again, we're talking about the difference. We're so used to the yellow and blacks typically being shown. Now, this one might be a little bit more dodgy because he's a little bit... Here's your orange and black.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I can't see how well I'm doing.
Yeah, that's
doing
good. Really good. It's hard because video doesn't show a lot of the colors, but Orientalis is one of my favorite geckos. Love it.
It is probably... It's the second favorite of my cave geckos, for sure.
Okay. What's your first?
I really, really, really like the Yamashine.
Okay.
Which I think it's one of those things where it's like, well, this is it's not a hyanensis, and it's actually going to keep its color longer. So I just kind of like that, you know. Misty, I'm in the middle of a lot. She wants to show me how cute the geckos that I have ready for the live are, but she wants me to look at them. I love you.
All right, that's cool.
So really quickly, back to the point, guys. All I'm saying is like that orange and black one, that's an Orientalis. And so if you say, do you have a cave gecko, you could get any one of the ones I just showed you plus the pictures. But if you say I want Orientalis, you're looking at, sometimes they're even pink and black, but red and black, orange and black, pink and black. Those are usually the Orientalis or one of their little subspecies. And so it's really important to learn those. So if you don't know, reach out to Wally, me, or if you know some of these guys in here, man, they have so much knowledge.
You bring up a good point, and I get hit a lot. I'm sorry, I'll bring that back up again. I bring these points up and then I take them off too quick. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I get caught a lot with Wally, you're using the scientific name. What's its common name? And I'll do that probably once every couple of weeks. Somebody will say, use a common name, Wally. So I don't use common names that often, except for crested geckos, leopard geckos. But I'm starting to change my ways a little bit. But I will never not include the scientific name if I mention a not so common animal. I got burnt on it one time with skunk geckos. Now, what's a skunk gecko to you?
Oh gosh,
the common
white
skunk.
line.
So I had posted a bunch of pictures of Gonatoides, and man, I'm forgetting the name now. The little skunk gecko with the orange and the white stripe right down the back. Can't think of it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Frank will know right off his top because he actually had them before it shows.
I had them for a long time, got a lot of babies, and I'm just drawing a blank. I apologize. But anyways, that's a skunk gecko. So I was posting a lot of pictures, and somebody that day said, hey, I need a male. I said, I've got an extra male. This is so cool. Send me shipping, and I'll send you the male out. Went fine, and you got the animal. How did the animal look? It looks good, but this isn't a skunk gecko. I was like, oh, fudge. This is not good. So that one lesson taught me, a lot about always use at least the, genus and species name and the common name if you want to.
Yeah. And you'll find that you can actually get away with almost what I'm going to call Spanglish, like somebody who knows a little Spanish but not enough with the scientific names. You can get away with saying, does anybody have an Orientalis cave gecko? Instead of knowing the whole name and saying, does anybody have Goniosaurus orientalis? You just want to make sure that that last part of the name you're getting right, because that's what's dictating what kind of cave gecko. Think of Goniosaurus as cave gecko. Okay, that's great. What's its last name? What kind is it? Same with everything. And these breeders will love you so much more because A, you know what you're talking about. You're not going to send them on a Wally or an Ian chase where you're getting the wrong thing and they're going, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. And B, it just kind of helps them know your level, how much research you've done. I'm not going to lie. When someone comes up to me and says, hey, do you have a day gecko? In my head, I'm going, can you keep it alive? And I don't mean it bad, but in my head, I'm wondering. It's just, like I said before, I'm an analyst. It's natural. But if they say, hey, do you have Phelsuma? Even if they don't know which kind of Phelsuma they want, I'm going, okay, this person's done enough reading to know a little bit. We're at least in a safe spot. I won't feel as bad because, man, at the reptile shows, and I know everybody who's been done one here knows this, you get some crazy folks. Sometimes you get some people that don't even know they're at a reptile show. They're so gone.
You mean the vendors like us? Well, at least like me.
That's us. Yeah,
That's
we have our moments. You need to vend with Frank one of these days. Frank, that is a man. I don't even know what I can say, so I'm just going to stop.
I'm sure that would be an adventure. So I'm going to challenge you. We're talking about species. We're talking about scientific names compared to common names. I'm going to throw a common name out, and your point was it doesn't really matter if you nail the pronunciation. Everybody will know what you're talking about if you miss it by a mile. Tell me the name of the barking gecko.
Underwoodosaurus melii? Are you talking about those?
No, it's not. It's not Underwoodosaurus melii. It's Nephurus melii. My point being that that name changes by the hour, right? And is it melii or is it melii? I don't care. We all know what we're talking about. So, yeah.
Well, and you're right. It's just the last I read, they switched it back to Underwoodosaurus. So you're right. It does switch by the hour. Because I do remember when it went by Neff for a while.
But if you use the scientific name and you throw in the common name, even if you don't, if you're close, everybody's going to know in the hobby. And if you throw in both and, the scientific and the common name, we're spot on. We're right on. So.
And the thing is, somebody once said, and I really love this saying, there's another one. Yeah, there's one more. Oh, I'll leave that thing down there. Under that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So sorry. She's like, I want to look first. One more thing I was going to say that I loved that somebody said once is that if you say the scientific name wrong, all you're saying is you can read. You might not know how to pronounce it, but you can read.
Yes.
So there's no reason to be embarrassed. There's no reason to feel bad,
Right on.
So can I share something really quickly that I just think that a lot of these guys who like the oddballish kind of stuff.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so one of my favorite stories. The little ones don't. The book Holes, Holes. A lot of people have read it. A lot of people have seen the movie. And in the book, they actually describe it pretty well. In the movie, they use bearded dragons with little wings and fangs stapled on them. And I just love telling this story and showing this. I don't know why. I'm a nerd. But if you read the book, and I don't remember if they mentioned them this way in the movie, but I think they do too, the yellow spotted night lizard. They were supposed to be dangerous. You know, in the book, they're all these terrible things, okay? So the problem is the real yellow spotted night lizards have this nasty habit of just randomly deciding you look munchable. They're not, the ones that I've kept are not mean by nature. They'd rather run, they'd rather whatever. But if you're holding them, they might be sitting there for 2 minutes in your conversation and then for some reason just decide to almost casually bite you.
Wow.
They also don't really like to be in the light. They're not as controllable as a bearded dragon is what I think I'm trying to get at. So they used bearded dragons. However, a lot of people, because it was a bearded dragon, don't realize that there really was a yellow spotted night lizard. And I'm just going to get this little guy. Misty's like, it's going to bite you. I'm like, the little ones never do. They don't. This is a yellow spotted night lizard.
Don't look at his mouth.
How old is it?
This guy is a little bit less than a month.
Oh,
so
my God.
That's one.
Girl, right?
Yeah, they're all girls, by the way. Sorry. I'll go into that in a minute too. But that's a baby. Sorry, he's in the paper towel. I have him in paper towel so I could pull him out quickly for you guys. They do not live in paper towel. Nobody confuse that, please. This is usually about the size you're going to see them online.
Okay.
And you can see the yellow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the yellow spots.
Beautiful.
And as you can see, they're really chill. Like I said, this is how they are. They just randomly will say, not today, and bite you. So, but what I think most people don't realize, and I love to show this to people, is, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get this lid off. There we go. Take that. Okay. They are actually one of, if not, I don't know that they are the largest, but they're one of the largest parthenogenic gecko or lizards out there.
Oh my.
Oh wow.
That's mama. That's one of the mamas. I have a few.
So that's full size right there.
You cut out. What was that?
Is that full size? Is that as big as they get?
They get a little bit bigger. Kind of like most reptiles, they'll slowly keep growing. But
Okay.
that's your standard adult. They're parthenogenic and live bearing.
Oh.
You don't have to incubate eggs. You don't do anything like that. It's kind of funny because the first one I got, and I just need to throw out, the shouts because Jim McDermott, I want to say, is who I got my first one from. And so what happened was I had it in a tank that had just a little small square screen. I don't know if you can see any. I have plenty in here, but once again, I can't move a laptop. I plan to have the phone. So it's just think of a long terrarium that's pretty tall, but with screen that you can lift out of, right?
Yep.
And one day I walk in and the dang screen's covered in what looked like little black something, and I'm thinking crickets or something. I look and it's all the babies. She put them out, and I was talking to my friend Paul Wool, who's another freaking genius, but he doesn't really want to get too involved in the alive stuff. But anyways, I said, Paul, I have 7 of these already. He's all, that's all? And I said, what are you talking about? And he's like, you've never had these before, have you? I said, no, I've never had one given birth. I haven't, I just barely got this one, about a year and a half ago. Anyways, long story short, there was, do you remember, was it 13?
Something like
13. 13 babies. And that's its first drop.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, they're just really cool. Mom doesn't do anything to them. I have learned sometimes more than one mom might mess with another one's tail, but they don't mess with the gecko itself. I've never had an injured gecko, but I have had little tips taken from tails. And I don't know if that's just mistaken identity. So just a food for thought, but they're fun. I love them. and they actually don't require as much tank space as a lot of things because in nature, they actually don't leave their home.
So not a lot of work with them, not a lot of special requirements or anything like that?
No. In fact, the babies, it took me a while to realize this. The babies prefer, or at least seem to prefer, Pangea. So they're even easier. The adults will do both. I've had adults that really like Pangea. I have had adults that are like, no, unless it's running, I don't want it. So, it's kind of hit and miss, but the babies definitely, I mean, it's one of the ways to find out how many you have. They'll do like the morning geckos and just kind of
huddle around eating it. Very cool.
Exactly.
Very cool. I've seen them on Jim's page. He'll share pictures of them, and I didn't really know that much about them. They certainly look really super cool.
They're cool. I love the lore behind the movie. I just love the thought that, whenever, unfortunately we get old and probably half the people on here haven't even seen the movie, but just knowing all those bearded dragons should have looked like this, it just messes with me, Yes, and of course, unlike the book, they are not venomous. So just for the record.
Very cool animal. Do you want to take a look at a couple of the other pictures that you shared with me?
Sure.
Okay, let me jump over there real quick.
Oh, wait, this is where I get revenge on you, right? I think so.
This is probably it. Let me get over to, I just lost my pictures.
Oh, I'm seeing it.
There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do is you had shared some other pictures here. So
yes,
let's talk about this animal. This is super cool.
So can we?
I don't know if we can keep that other animal.
We're kind of going backwards though. Can we go to the other side of those guys?
Yeah.
Pictures.
While I'm doing that, why don't you answer this question? It's so can you keep them communally?
Meaning the yellow spot.
I have. And I only say I have. I know for a fact that Jim has. The only reason you're hearing me hesitate is, like I said, I have seen tail nips. So can you keep them communally? Yes. Make sure you give them enough space and a lot of hides because they will claim a hide and that's their hide. But yeah, I've had no problems as far as like adults beating each other up or finding a baby that's been, bitten in its leg or I don't ever see that. I will see tails that have been, the nub bit off. Other than that, yeah, you can.
Okay.
So this was my question for you.
Yeah.
Wally, what's the scientific name of this thing?
Goniosaurus belanglogensis. Am I close?
You're not even on the right picture there, buddy.
That's as much as you're going to get from me. I'm not even going to try. Okay, I'll try it. Asacurus platyrhynchus. Platyrhynchus.
But see, I can tell you can read. That's what matters. Yeah, I don't know the right way either. I just always say Asacus and Asacus. I'll be like Asacus platyrhynchus. That's as close as I come to. So just so you know.
So what he said.
Okay, we have Gecko Gallery in here, and I know he is a scientific nerd, and I know that he would look at this and know exactly how to say it based on Latin rules.
Right.
And I used to know the rules from keeping tropical fish years and years and years ago, but those are far out of my brain, and I couldn't even start to try to go back to those rules.
Well, I think the hard part for me is that I've had people who know Latin. In fact, Angelica, the one that keeps commenting in here, her husband, Devin, he knows his Latin pretty well. The problem is he might say it right, and your friend might say it right, but then when you're in the community, you find that 90% of the people you're talking to that breed them are saying it wrong. Uh-huh. And so now you have a choice of either correcting them and saying, well, my friend knows this, or just kind of rolling with it. And so I've kind of learned that I just go with whatever they say when I say it back,
Yes, yes.
So anyways, these guys, I just wanted to mention them because they're kind of cool. But the reason I wanted you to go this way is that if you go that way and you kind of just go to the next picture over, what's really cool about these guys is that confirmed from quite a few people, from Frank over at Reptilian Diaries, to Joe Hub, quite a few people at this point have actually confirmed, and this was a few years ago, that nobody's breeding them anymore. They're just not in the States anymore as pairs. And so I still have the pair that bred.
Oh my!
Actually, I should say I still have some of the offspring that are still breeding. I still have pairs. With that being said, when I moved here, they stopped.
Oh no!
Oh.
So I have been working with them, and I'm hoping to get them going again. But I just thought it'd be cool for people to see something that, if they don't breed again, this is probably the last pair until someday when they come back into the States.
Wow.
But
that
yeah,
has to be frustrating.
It
that
really
has to be
is
real frustrating.
It really is, because I love them. They are, I mean, even before, to give you an idea, at the time, I don't remember what they were trying to get me by. It was Frank and Jonathan Garrett and all those guys. And they wanted me to get something else. And I saw these and I was like, they're coming home with me. I loved them. And then they bred. And then they bred like crazy for a while there. And then when I moved here, they just stopped. And when I say stopped, I mean, I'm not even getting duds. So I'm hoping, I think I got it locked in finally. But it was a serious learning experience getting them to really, really get going on a very continuous basis. And one thing I have heard from some of the people who have had them but didn't keep them, like for a long time, I'm not going to say his name, but a guy who was really well known from Florida, who he's kind of become kind of a good villain, I guess, to a lot of people. That's all I'm going to say. But he had them, and he was having problems with the regularity. He was like, I've had them breed once, and then they didn't for 2 years, and then they bred again, and then they didn't for another 3 years. And so I really did a lot to hone in on them and get them to breed pretty routinely. I thought I'd replicated it here. It doesn't seem to be working. I just barely made a couple more adjustments that I actually hadn't thought about. And if that's it, I'm really going to laugh, but we'll see. It's either that or the move here made him say, no. I've tried the separation. I've tried everything. So, but I love them. If you want to go to the next picture of them, that's them on their normal day.
Okay.
And they really are like that. They have these alien-like little hands that you almost feel like you're going into any of the toe gecko species, but they're not. They're just a totally different creature. They have, like, if you look at those fingers, you'll see what I'm talking about. And when they grab you when you hold them, because they're not afraid of you.
Oh,
when
wow.
you hold them, if they're touching your finger, they're doing that around your finger. They're not doing this. They're doing that.
Oh,
it's really,
cool.
it's just really cool. If you go to the next one. So this one, that's just a good example of your Osaka's on. Pay attention to that background though, because I'm going to go into that in a minute. And then the next one, that's when the male is ready to breed.
Wow.
Yeah, he colors up.
That's shocking, the color difference.
Oh, yeah. And it's always, what's funny is the tail. The tail is your biggest giveaway.
So the females don't get this color whatsoever?
Not that I've ever noticed.
Okay.
So back to that picture, the last picture. Something that I learned, these guys, part of their trick is that they are from, why am I drawing a blank? Oman. Okay.
Okay.
For those that aren't familiar, Oman is a desert, like the desert, but it meets the ocean. These guys are hanging out right there, right where there's water and rock. And so one way Frank described him, like I said, go to his YouTube, because he really does go to these places. But one way he described it is that there are times where you feel like if they lost grip on the rock, they'd fall into the ocean. So you have this heat, but you have this humidity. And it's a dry heat in the sense that the sand and the rock there is just dry as you can imagine, but there's an ocean under them. And so I did everything I could back in the day to try to replicate this. And to give you an idea, when I talk about being an analyst, when I was working with dart frogs, I had learned some of the dart frogs would trigger if you didn't have to run a rain bucket. If you actually just ran a fogger. Bye, Neil, dude. It was so great to see you, man. I learned that if you just ran a fogger and then ran a computer fan, like having the computer fan run every 5 minutes, you would actually do the same thing as a rain chamber. They'd start calling and breeding and everything. Wow. But I went that far into it, learning, trying to do different things. Well, with these guys, I went and got a bunch of moon rock. And when I say moon rock, I don't mean true moon rock. I mean that rock that's really porous. Looks almost like coral. And I went and bought excavator sand. It's on the market. It's called excavator sand. It's a reptile product. I can't remember the company. I want to say it's Zoomed.
I think so.
And it's called excavator sand. And a lot of people didn't like it because they mistook it as something that your gecko digs in. You know, he excavates. And that's not what I've learned. It dries hard. The only way your gecko's going to dig in it is if you put your gecko in there while it's still wet, which I personally would never risk. It is basically clay. But what I realized is when the mister hits that, plus the moon rocks, you do get a pretty decent high 80, 70, 80% humidity bust. That lasts for a pretty good while because that clay stays humid, especially if you're doing, there's no way to do that. I wish I had a mouse on it. Especially if you're doing it, you can't tell right there, but it's actually kind of 3D. If you're hitting the water there's certain areas that are like caves down at the bottom. If you get in there, it stays nice and humid in there. I learned that that's where they would lay their eggs every time. But to give you an idea about this journey, they'd lay their eggs there every time unless I didn't put a rock in there. They would not lay their eggs in the actual clay. It had to be a piece of slate. And then they'd go in there and they'd lay the egg in the slate. And it got to the point in Cali where I really could go to those caves and just pull out a rock and look at it and know if they'd laid. You know, because they stick. They stick just like a day gecko. So, yeah, just a quick story on that.
So my analytical mind is going through like a million scenarios too. So it sounds like they need that well, you just said it, high humidity, high heat, but they also like maybe crevices and it sounds like it would be a challenge unless you had a lot of animals, a lot of different enclosures, and could try different things and different. You know, now you're waiting a whole year to try something else, and oh no, it didn't work this year either. Now I've got to wait another year, and well worth the wait. Beautiful animal, but sounds challenging.
Well, the thing about these guys that I did like is that they didn't breed until they were ready to lay anyway. So it wasn't like I found duds everywhere. That was not the case. So that was kind of helpful.
Is this your logo?
That's my old logo.
Okay.
And I say old because a lot of people don't know this, but I just went through a battle, if you can believe it, with the town and got, we're going to say an exception to the city's ordinances. And I am now officially legal and a breeder and have my license and can do shows and everything else. That will not be alimony or artificer geckos. That'll actually be alimony hobbies. And when that happens, I'll be throwing it out like crazy. You'll know. And I say when that happens, meaning when I switch everything over. That's what I haven't done yet.
Okay. I'm going to. I was going to ask it later, but let's do it right now. How can people reach you? For right now, it's Facebook. I think I shared the link earlier, but I'm
in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again real quick here, but is that the best way for people to reach you?
That's the name either on Facebook or on Instagram. Some people prefer Instagram. Yeah. So that works for either. It's a great way to reach me. I will know in a heartbeat if you've sent it. If I don't answer, I'm sleeping. It's that simple. We do run, even though we're in Georgia, my wife still works West Coast schedule. So we do tend to be up later, but we also tend to sleep in later.
Okay.
So there's that. On TikTok, I'm alimony, but the O is a 0. I don't know how I can't type it. So, but if you add me on Facebook, you'll see TikToks, and the TikToks have my name in it. Just remember the O is a 0. That is intentional. I do that so that people can't find or fake me that don't know me. If it's not a 0 in that name, you know it's not me.
And if you want me to put anything in the description of this video, please send it over on Facebook, and I'll add it to the description.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Sure. But just keep in mind that TikTok, and you've been witness to this, Wally. TikTok for me is fun. It's not just geckos. There are times where it's just like if me and Wally were going to get off of this and decide to just have some drinks and just kind of vent, or not vent bad about the live, but just kind of like, oh yeah, well, what's the worst of this you've ever seen or whatever. We might go to TikTok and go live there because there, I feel like it's less likely to cost somebody the way YouTube sometimes charges people for doing things they don't like, whether it's having a drink, smoking, whatever.
And we would be here until 4 a.m. I swear. We 4 a.m. in the morning. Hey, we have some questions. I'm going to finish up with hit it or quit it because I've kept you an hour and 45 minutes, and I hate keeping people. I appreciate that, Ian. But I'm going to grab some questions here. DEA, if you're still here, I'm going to grab your question. What are your future ambitions for your personal collection and hobby?
I think we just kind of got into that in the sense that I finally got the license. Now there's two ambitions. Number one is, of course, the reptile shows, because I miss that community. It's you make some real friends once you start doing shows. Mm-hmm. The second thing is I'm actually going to be doing a lot here in town to educate and work with what was that house called? I forget. Basically, underprivileged kids or kids who aren't in the highest. They've been like removed from their regular school.
Yep.
And just kind of show them. I used to do a lot of that in Sacramento because there was a way bigger problem with it in Sacramento. And out there, I would tell people, like, so you know how to do graffiti? Okay, here's some things you can learn to paint that might, if you made a decent background, sell at a show. Oh, you know how to do this? Well, this could be used this way. I tried to show people there's other things, and I didn't mention it, but I might as well. I'll tell people, oh, you want to sell marijuana? Okay, well, that's one way, but if you get busted, you lose. This plant over here is $116 a rooted leaf. So it might not be as quick a money, but it's good money, and you're not going to lose it if you get caught. You're not going to jail. You're not whatever. So I like to do a lot of that too. I would say those are my main ambitions, and to make the wife happy.
Absolutely. Priority number one. We have a question from J-Bug here, and that is, I have found it really hard to find info on rare geckos. Where did you get your knowledge for them? And I have actually in my outline here that same kind of question. Who are your mentors? Where do you find the information that you get on animals?
So that's a tricky one because it's so open-ended, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. And I say that because I firmly believe there's 3 different types. There's 4 if you count people like Frank and Philippe, but I'm going to leave it at just the 3. There's 3 type of people that you'll run into on Facebook, or I'm going to say social media, because there's, your content people, the people that talk a lot about these things. The first is, I like to call them mama gecko people. I mean, no offense, but I like to call them mama gecko people. And what I mean by that is that is their baby. That gecko is their baby. I don't mean it in the way I've heard other people say it, which isn't a good way. I honestly, to give you an idea, there's one of my favorite people ever sends me an update every month on the geckos she bought from me like 4 years ago. And if you ever see me on Facebook saying I love people who do that, 9 times out of 10 it's her. Those people are looking at it like it's an animal. Like it's like when I say an animal, I mean like a puppy. And that's important to me to know when I'm talking to someone, because that person is probably going to give you a very personal answer if you ask how you do something. They might tell you that you need to put more plants in there, even though you don't need to put more plants in there, but it would look really, really nice if you did. It just in my experience, they get more creative, I guess is what I'm saying. And yeah, and from a truly serious, well, I'm just going to say it. Pretty doesn't always mean that matters as far as survivability or breeding. So that's the first type. The second type is what I would call the observer, the person who really it is just their hobby. They love that's more where I'm at, where I love these. They're not my babies in that sense, but I do have some that are definitely my buddies. I feel like, but as a whole, I will literally, you're on a rolling table cart right now. I will literally, as a rule, if I'm working on a project, go up to a tank and do it next to the tank so I can watch the behaviors while I'm doing it. I like to learn that way. It's not scientific. And I always have to clarify, I don't think it's a scientific thing. I'm not inventing or researching, producing, so to speak, as much as analyzing. I am literally going, wait, these two are going at it, why? And I'll do certain things and I'll be like, oh, they're not fighting anymore, even though they were before and they weren't supposed to. It was the vines. For some reason, they had an attitude about being on the highest vine. So I learned things like that.
Yes.
I'm learning stuff like that. And then finally, there's what I call the scientists. And those are, in my opinion, now, once again, I'm giving you specifics for a reason. I'll go into it. But when I say these, I'm saying that is what they do. These people that I'm saying are scientists. They may even have a degree in herpetology or biology. And they know a ton in that realm. But there's a flip side to everything. In my experience, a lot of those people graduated class of 2002. Or they are hardcore scientists, but they only worked with a certain kind of snake for the most part. Or they, you know what I mean? There's always these little weaknesses in all of them.
Yeah.
And so my first thing I would say, if you're looking to figure out where you can learn about a rare animal, is go and look for the people that are breeding that rare animal, not someone who's like, I don't mean any disrespect, but if I was looking for if there was some brand new gecko out from New Caledonia and I saw it at somebody and their website was nothing but, say, gargoyles or nothing but cresteds, I might ask them for some advice, but I'm going to try to find that person who has more of what I'm actually looking for. And I say that because I don't want to make anybody upset, but I've seen so many rules get transferred over, and I'll go to their Facebook and I'll go backwards and I'll go, oh, you got that from leopard geckos. You think the leopard gecko applies to this gecko. Or, you got that because you've had bearded dragons and now you have a cresty, and for some reason in your mind, it has to kind of follow the same rule. And it's really hard for some people to unlearn. A lot of people have trouble unlearning. Oh, I had a beardy. They need their heat. They need full UVB. If you don't do this or this, it's going to, and so I've learned, don't go to that person who's only been doing certain, like one type of gecko and suddenly has jumped into another one. And because they've bred, because they'll throw it at you. They'll say, I've been breeding for 8 years and I've had over 500 geckos. And you go look and you're like, they're not lying. But they've only had like 6 crested geckos in their life. Why are they giving me advice on crested geckos? So that's my first thing. Research those people. The second place I get my stuff is what's called field notes. They're harder and harder to find. But like, why am I drawing a blank? Jean Philippe. He used to do a lot of like field notes. And Frank, that website I told you guys to go to, his YouTube, he's doing basically field notes, but on video, which is even better. Learn for yourself. When I first started doing chihuahuas, I went and all I did was look up pictures of chihuahuas in nature, like real pictures. I didn't go to any care sites. I already knew what New Caledonia was like. And if you're doing cresteds right now, you know what New Caledonia is like. Now go look for that particular animal from people that are going out there and just taking pictures. One thing I found really in common with my chihuahuas is they were often being pictured at the base of a tree with all the roots that kind of still come out, and they'd be in there. So no joke, I can give you a picture tomorrow or tonight if you want, although tonight it would be dark, of my chihuahua tank. It really is like a tree stump. And they literally lay their eggs every time right at the base of where one of these stumps end, every time. And so that's the other thing. Look for the real notes and the real pictures. I once got banned because I said that there were lychees 100 feet in trees. I got banned from a group for saying that. They were saying that's not true. It's funny because I was looking at the field notes, the journal pictures of the drawing, and they were saying, here's where we found the lychees from here to here. Here's where we found some Sarah Sonorum. Here's where we found some, because they found some of these trees had multiple colonies. So your field notes are always going to trump what the people say.
Yes.
And finally, keep in mind who you're talking to on Facebook, because if it is any of those three, you can have somebody with a bachelor's or master's in something telling you you're doing it wrong. Okay, look at their history. Are they keeping them? Because I know a lot of mechanics that will kill at a transmission, but it's been so long since they've done anything with, some other part that they're not dead on anymore. And as time has gone on, some of them have fallen behind on the computer side of the cars now. It's the same with everything. Geckos, plants, all of it. So, my biggest thing is honestly start with Wally and Frank. Shoot me a message if you want. But
I know a guy that was really successful with this one gecko called Asacusa platyricasicus.
I heard he's a jerk.
Great breeder, but then he couldn't do anything, when he moved. So he couldn't get them to breed. So my point is exactly everything that you said is 110% true, but also in the back of your mind, keep this. Everybody's house is a little bit different. Everybody's environment, everybody mists a little bit different. Everybody feeds on different schedules. So if Joe Hupp says, here's how I do it, use that, then talk to Ian and say, Ian, how do you keep this animal? And then go over to Jim and say, you do Cyrtodactylus. Tell me about how you keep. Take all three of those, and you made the best point, and I say this every show, I feel like. I'm sorry, viewers, you've heard it from me for 1,000 times. Go to, Google Scholar, get some actual information, not from Joey on Facebook Crested Gecko groups, but get some good, like you said, in nature. Frank, oh my gosh, you're right. Frank trumps everything. If Frank says it, it's golden, because he's seen it. He's been there. He knows. So that's kind of how I tell people is get a couple of sources, understand their environments, and then go back and get the actual what nature says.
Yeah, and you nailed it. And it's funny, my wife's over here looking at me because she's like, we talk about this all the time, and it's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Know where they are. Because, and this goes both ways. You didn't ask this question, but when I do get one, even from Frank, I don't care who it's from, I asked for a picture of how the setup was there. Mm-hmm. And everything, are you giving it UVB? And they'll be like, well, sometimes they don't need it. I do have a little puck light that throws out a little bit of UVB. And I'll be like, okay, I'm getting me a puck light UVB. So it goes both ways. You want to know where they are, but you also want to know how they're keeping them, because you want to kind of try to, some of these animals, and Melii are actually one of the ones I used for examples in my talks in Sacramento. They're in the desert in Australia. If you go by the name, they're in this desert that goes all the way across Australia. However, that desert goes all the way across Australia. Yes. And there are places where it's sand, but there are places where it looks like a forest that's kind of just a little dry, and there's places where it looks like savannas. And so you don't know how that person was. That person might have been like, oh, yeah, no, in my head, they're in sand, and they've been breeding them, and they're doing great in sand. Okay, it could be that that's working. It could be that happened to be a locality from there. There's a lot of different factors. Mm-hmm. So I always do both of those. And same with Joe, except for Joe's never gives me any. But Frank, everybody else, including John McDermott and all that, Jim McDermott, I will ask for a picture of their tank. And to the location thing, I'll take it a step further for you. When cave geckos came out and I started looking at all the notes, I say first came out, when I first got into them, it was quite a while back, everything I read talked about heat. Everything I read. And I was going, cave geckos, heat? And one day it occurred to me, almost every care sheet I was looking at was from like Russia and Germany. Oh. And I was going, okay, wait, now this makes sense. They because I was really throwing myself for a loop. I was researching, going, okay, on one hand, they're supposed to stay nice and cool. they've been recorded breeding at these crazy low temperatures, and yet at the same time, you're telling me to put a heat pad on their tank and a light. So yeah, keep in mind where they are. That's a huge one because, yeah.
I've heard this. I've heard you tell that story. Maybe it was on Black Coal Exotics, I think. But that is a wonderful, wonderful story. I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm going to grab another question real quick here.
Sure.
Southern raised exotics, Ian and Wally, if you keep them, have you ever kept agricoli, Eurodactylodes in groups with more than 2 females? I have not.
Let me see if I can do this. Right. There.
Oh, got it.
That's actually I just know it's 18 inches tall, which some people think is too small, but I'm like, that's perfect. I've been doing it. They're working, but it's like a 30 as far as length. So it's 18 inches, but it's nice and tall. It's an aquarium. I actually replaced. Okay. I replaced the. I wish I could pull it off, but I put my router on it. That white thing you see right there. But that's them, and they basically do just fine. I've never had a problem. Now, would they hurt a baby if it got too big? I think so. I think if another male baby came up, I think that they might hurt that. But as far as they go with each other, I've had no problems. None.
Is that a boy and a girl, or do you have 2 females?
No, exactly what he said. It's a trio.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to throw this one in there. Southern Raised Exotics is saying, add on, and what is your experience with eggs hatching production? Hatchling production.
What specifically? What are we?
Like,
I'm going to guess in hatch rates.
Oh gosh. On everything in general, or are we talking about ones? I don't know. Are we still talking about agricoli?
I'm thinking it's in general.
So. I'm thinking it's on agricoli.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Let's go with agricoli.
All right.
Okay, with agricoli, my rule of thumb is I actually do not. Gosh, I'm going to go into some things I don't like to talk about, or I wasn't ready to put out yet, but I'm going to anyway.
Okay.
I do not like to disturb their eggs if I can help it. I leave them in the tank.
Okay.
Now, what I have learned is they go straight for the top if you have a screen type top, and you can collect them there. You have to be pretty diligent on it, obviously. That's why I was kind of hesitant to say I don't know, because I have not seen anything get killed, but there's always that possibility that something is hatched. It was a little boy and it got eaten. You never know. But I have not seen anything like that. I have pulled them straight from the tanks. But what I'm doing now is, sorry, is it right here? I don't know if they can see this. Can you hand me the? Yeah, I can make it work. Hang on.
Not happening, Jay.
So what I have learned, thanks to a misting system.
Yeah.
No, Misty, you tell me. Can they see this?
Yes. We can see where you're pointing.
You see the circle?
No.
We can just see the light.
It's just too much of a glare.
Okay. Oh, can you see this too?
You're too close to it.
Oh, I'm too close?
So look.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to be able to see both.
Okay. So it's hard, but
yeah.
There's a tube. If you look, let me see if I can just. Oh, I know what I can do.
Hear the laptop over there.
No.
Not
This will
right
make it visible. Okay.
Wow.
So if you look, you see a tube right here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Can you kill the lights again? I just don't want any animals to. Okay. So what I have learned you could get away with via my dang misting line, the agricoli babies will climb up as high as they can, including out of your tank if you don't have that misting line perfectly.
Oh.
I have a circle cut at the top of that tank I was showing you that is going to be a chamber where the cord runs all the way into the chamber into a small little tank. Because they'll do it. I have learned it had gotten to the point where I figured out where they were getting out from because they were always on that drip line.
Oh.
From me checking like every day. So once I do that, I think it's not going to be an issue. But that is my only concern as far as not disturbing the eggs. The eggs I have pulled out, the hatch rate is now at about 99%, to be honest. But for my first couple of years, it was gosh, maybe 30-40% if I pulled them out. It was less than half. Now they're all great. Although personally, I think it's just the maturity of the agricole, because I haven't changed a whole lot.
Yeah.
So,
good point. Gecko Galaxy reiterates exactly what we've been saying. The best advice is always to source from as many places as you can. Look for consensus. Tweak things to your own unique set of variables. Yes,
and
absolutely.
you have to. Some people are better with. I mean, there are people that know way less than me about certain geckos, and there are people that know way more than me. And sometimes we're going, "How did you do that?" Because even though we might know more about the gecko, sometimes the gecko chooses you. It says, "Okay, you know what? I like you. I'm going to breed, and we're just going to go crazy with this." So definitely go your own way.
There's a Ariel from gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Aerotonics is about as different from me as anybody with ideas about keeping geckos, but yet he's my favorite source to talk to because he will challenge me and make me justify my reasons for doing something. No, Wally, that's not true. It's this way. No, Ariel, it's not. It's this way. Well, tell me why. Tell me. And it's like, just because. No, tell me why. So back and forth, and I absolutely love that because I'll challenge him as well, and we'll fight tooth and nail, and at the end it'll be like, all right, we can't decide. Have a good day. How'd you do at the show today? And we're best friends again. So I like that back and forth. Okay, yeah. So Yoshi is asking, what is your favorite lizard or gecko?
It varies so much. Right now, although I do have a pair of Anolis that are winning me over pretty quickly, but right now, I honestly think my favorite lizard are the Tachydramus, this guy that I was showing you earlier. Let's see if I can even. Where is he? Come on! Sorry, it's so weird on this camera. No. And the reason is because they have tails that are like they're basically a form of long-tailed lizard. They're just a rare form, and when you get them in a really big terrarium, and you get a lot of branches, they make me think of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, if you ever saw that movie. Because they do a lot. It's like they're a snake that hasn't quite figured out it has hands yet. They slither down they slither down the thing, and they slither up it. And when you throw crickets in there, I mean, it's like if you think of the video that was viral where the snakes were all chasing the iguana on the beach. I want to say it was part of Planet Earth or whatever, where you just have this lizard running and all of these snakes. Well, that's these lizards all coming down from the tree to hit the crickets, but they use their tails prehensively so that it's like they're floating. And so, yeah, I like them as far as lizards because they keep it entertaining that way. Gecko-wise, probably Cerasinorum, but I'm saying that because I'm thinking in terms of personality and everything. I like Ceracinorums because, as Wally was mentioning earlier, they have the ability to bolt. If they want to, they can be out of your hands as fast as a day gecko. So when you get a Cerasinorum, it's almost like a Tokay where their challenge is to make it accept you and like you. Because if a Ceracinorum's sitting in your hand and you're like this, and it's not running, you've earned it. It's not doing it. It's okay with being with you. It's not because it's not in its nature. You have taught it to go against its nature to bolt.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I like the Ceras.
There's got to be a comfort level with you working with your Ceras in that I don't know if it's trust. It's certainly not, oh, I like you and you're kind to me and I love you. And I think it's really past, a lot of people will get past that and say, well, it's food based and you're just the person providing food. And I think it's past that. And maybe it's trust. I don't know. Maybe it's not trust. Maybe I'm throwing too much at it, but there's got to be some kind of bond there.
Yeah, I've seen evidence that suggests it's more than that. Not necessarily. I'm not saying it's love. Yeah. But I have Mealy-eye that I could open the door and they'll climb right out onto my hand and literally come up my arm, smell around, and then turn around and go, okay, and walk back into their tank. No running, no nothing. So that's more than just food because they're but yeah.
Let's catch Angie's question here, and then we're going to move on to the hit it or quit it. Because, again, we could be here 4 hours. This could be our Monday marathon, but we're not going to do that. So Angie is asking, Ian, is there a rare gecko you're dying to have?
Right now, Morisacus. I'd love to keep that line going. What's really funny is I'm looking more at some of the lizards. The geckos are I love them, but I've kind of hit a point where I'm not. It's hard for me to go to a reptile show nowadays and see something new, see something that I haven't. Not saying I've had it all, but that I am not familiar with. Yeah. So it's hard. I do know that I'd love to get back into a few more of the day geckos. I love them. Something we didn't talk about, but I did do snakes too. The reason I ended up going with geckos is I feel like snakes were entertaining to me when I pulled them out of the terrarium. But for the most part, during the rest of the time, it might as well be a shoebox in a corner. That's just me. I know some people love them, and I respect it. The geckos, especially like the day geckos and these lizards, they're entertainment even when they're in their tank. So with that being said, I'd love to get more day geckos. There's not no, there is one. Oh my god, would you know it? Hemidactylus. Why am I drawing a blank? Rispoli.
Oh, okay.
Rispoli.
Rispoli.
Yeah. Really? The black with the stars, babies are just absolutely gorgeous. Really, I had them for a long time.
So did I. So did Joe.
Yes. And now you think that they're gone?
They're either gone, or to give you an idea, I have a female.
Really?
I have a female, and I'm sitting here hoping she will have some sort of a retention. And just surprise me one day, but I don't think so at this point. It's been long enough. But I actually reached out. That's why I said so did Joe. I reached out, and it seems like they kind of vanished. And unfortunately, that was one of the species I had plenty of, and I left in California. I brought a trio back, and one of the females, she just gave out. I don't know why. And then the male himself, he ended up just dying, but much later. The female died almost within a year of being here. The male died last year.
Oh,
so
sorry to hear that. And I think that there's a lot of geckos that we've just probably maybe lost forever. And the value of people in the hobby that aren't in the hobby now, but would bring in those animals was invaluable. But it is what it is. We could always, we have pictures and that's about it right now. And we might never see some of these animals again. So, but on a positive note, let's do the hit it and quit it. And the rules here are, like
you ever follow them.
Like I ever follow them, but we're going to try this time. The rules are, I'm going to read off a question and you're going to answer like in one word. There's no explanation. You don't get to explain yourself. You just have to answer, and we're going to move on. And you're going to have to hold me to this. I can't answer for you, and I can't add my comments, and I can't say anything on it. So it is what it is. Let's hit it and quit it. So we're going to start off really super easy, and none of these are really that tough. But we're going to start off easy. What's your favorite food? We're getting to know Ian just a little bit more. What's your favorite food?
One word answer?
A couple, 3 sentence. You can explain yourself a little bit. See, I'm already breaking the rules.
Okay. It's called pozole.
Okay, now you have to explain yourself.
Explain what it
That's
is.
why I was like,
what is it?
It's a Mexican dish. It's kind of like menudo without, I don't know if you're familiar with menudo. Okay, so it's a Mexican.
Is that boy band, Menudo?
That was actually their name.
No, you need to stop and let
He's
him.
right. No, he's right. It was. But they were named after, they both actually, I forget the name of the word, but the word means something. But the soup is called menudo. But menudo has tripe in it, which is basically stomach, and I can't. I'm just not crazy about the texture. Pozole is kind of the same, but with pork, with actual pieces of meat, like a stew.
Ooh,
Okay.
Ooh.
And it is like, to give you an idea, my cousin can make it, and when she makes it, when she made it the first time, I literally went through that stuff every day until it was gone. Misty learned how to make it from scratch the same way, but it takes like a whole night. It's not, if you're making it right, it's not something you can just whip up for dinner.
Right.
So that's probably my favorite.
That sounds good. That really does. Okay, number 2. Take yourself back to when you were 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13 years old.
Okay, which is it?
Take it back to as far back as you can remember. What was the one TV show that you just could not miss? It's like, oh my gosh, this is on. I've got to watch this.
If I'm going back that far, Transformers, the cartoon.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Okay.
I watched that stuff like it was a soap opera.
Oh my gosh, I did too.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Not your question.
Okay, sorry. What's cool? A souped up 64 CUDA or a 22 BMW?
CUDA.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I that was unfair though, because honestly, I don't like BMWs in general.
Okay. Yes, me too. Okay, crickets, blessing or curse?
Crickets, what?
Blessing or curse?
Both.
Misty will tell you what it is.
Yeah, I'm gonna say both.
I can hear her laughing.
Misty, blessing or curse for crickets? We know the answer to that. Okay, what's your favorite thing to do in the facility? What's your favorite thing to do with the animals?
Build.
Wow, interesting.
Cool.
Kind
Yeah, I
of
would
planning, the analytical part of your brain's working overtime. Very cool.
I mean, I do everything else and I like everything else, but building, I think I get the most joy.
Wow. I've asked this same question to a few other interviews, and nobody has said build. That very interesting. What's your least favorite thing to do in the facility or with your animals?
Clean glass.
Ooh, another good one.
That's another good one.
Yeah.
Some, a lot of people have said clean poop and do that, but nobody said clean glass, and that sucks. How do you clean your glass?
There was actually a story on this one too. We're gonna have to do another one of these nights.
I know.
This is something you can ask me about. You can ask me about this when we do another night. But at the risk of some people getting really mad, I've learned to use a 1/3 mix of water and regular, plain, not extra nothing, simple green, and a scraper, and then a paper towel, and sometimes if I really have to in between somewhere. Now this is only for lime, but a magic eraser, plain.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you say scraper, do you mean a razor blade?
Yes.
Razor blade? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then a magic erasers do wonder for the water. If you're using calcified water, it helps.
Wow. I'm gonna have to replay this part of the live stream because I'm gonna use that.
But put a note somewhere though.
Yeah.
About a simple green story, because I do have a hell of a story on how I found out that it was safe.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, will do. So you're working on your animals. What music are you playing to help you kind of get in the mood to work on the animals?
Go into one of my TikToks lives and you'll know, but I'm really big on mashups.
Okay.
I love, to give you an idea, but old school mashups. And what I mean by that is people who have today's skills, today's technology, but they'll take like, let me think of one of my favorites really quickly. And I know we're not supposed to go into big examples, but I think this is something people will be able to, Thunderstruck. Okay. By AC/DC. Okay.
AC/DC.
I have one that starts really normal. You'll swear it's the same. It starts with that infamous guitar little riff that they're doing and everything. And then out of the blue, it goes dark with like a dubstep guitar grind. But it's still, for the most part, the same song, but just enough to throw you for a loop if you're listening to it and go, whoa, what happened to that song? That's pretty badass. So
wow. That sounds really good. I like the version of Thunderstruck by the I'm guessing they're Southern folks. One has an anvil that he's hitting and banjo. You've got the banjo going. That's probably my favorite version of Thunderstruck. I am out of hit it or quit it, and we have failed once again because we didn't answer one of those with one or just a sentence, one word or just. I never do. So it's I have consistency here, so that's cool.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks for playing hit it or quit it.
Yeah,
Last question for you, Ian. Is there something that our viewers should know about you before leaving this live stream that you'd like to share with them? And follow that up with, again, how can people find you on the intraweb?
Okay. First thing, probably the most important thing, even if you don't remember my name, but you come across it, I will never say something in any discussion like Facebook or any other. I say Facebook because that's where it tends to happen the most. I will never say something that I have not either done myself or somebody who I would consider, for lack of better words, a master over me has not done. I would never suggest it. I don't argue with people. I try not to argue in general, but I don't debate with people about something that I don't know for sure. I've had too many times where I've been wrong. So if I am talking about something, if you want to ask my source, go for it, but don't think that I am making it up. I won't do that. Second thing, if you want to reach out to me, Facebook is probably your best if you just add Ian, add my name, because that's different. That's personal. Now, I will tell you, sometimes I try to mess with people on it. If something I say bugs you, message me. Find out why, because a lot of times I'm messing, honestly, with my family that's still in California. I like to tease them. I love California. I love the people that I knew there, so it's not bad. I really am probably teasing one of them, and I do that, and sometimes people think I'm talking to them for some weird reason, even though I might have had 2 conversations with them ever. So that's that. But on the flip side, if you add Ian and you message me, I'll get it for sure. What was the last thing?
That was it. Contact you. We were getting a lot of comments coming through here.
Just saying thank
Terry,
you. Great.
I love you.
And I wanted to kind of finish this off by saying, from your last comment, there's a lot of reasons that we haven't really talked one-on-one before, and yet I feel like you're a really good friend on the internet. And I say that kind of weird, but what I mean by it is that it seems like I connect with you really square. And I think it's just because of what you said. When you say something, it's like when E.F. Hutton talks, everybody listens. But when you talk, I listen because there's reasons behind it. You have a lot of examples. And again, every single one of your examples we could talk for 2 or 3 hours, because I would be asking question after question after question. But it seems like when you say something, it's like, this is it, because I'm taking it from, like you were saying, from a great experience, or I'm taking it from a very renowned source that I myself trust 100%. So I think that's why I connect, and I think that we have a lot of commonalities with rare geckos and things like that. But I tell you, if you and I were like 20 minutes away from each other, Nanette, it would be bad. I would never, ever, ever see you. We'd be sitting at Fridays until they close.
You were very excited about tonight.
I was very excited about tonight.
I am just so glad. And I got to say, just for the record, everybody who's been in here, thanks for putting up with us. And I have to say, I forgot to say this, just TikTok. TikTok is where, if you want to talk to me on a more casual level, you go there. A lot of people jump into Facebook, but they really just want to talk geckos randomly and whatever. That's more TikTok. So I love you guys, all of you, and I hope I make a couple new friends, because honestly, like I said, since I've moved here, I don't have a whole lot of reptile friends. It sucks. What
There
have-
was a pink and red gecko.
I'm going to
that
see
we
if I can
showed
get
earlier.
there. Bear with me for just a second
And they
here.
Are you
wanna
talking
know
about Orientalis?
It was
I
a
know
couple-
exactly. I know
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. I'm going to get
Came up
there.
a couple times.
That one?
I am sure that's what they mean.
Is that
Jay,
the one, Jay?
J-Bug, is that the one? I am sure that's it.
Yep.
Yes?
Is that it, Jay?
Is that it?
Yes.
I'm
no?
sure it. Yes.
What is that?
Okay, yeah, that's Orientalis. Think of the word Orientallo. Oriental. Orientalis. Or if you, I don't know how old Jay is, but if Jay saw Karate Kid, it's the cave gecko from Okinawa,
There you go.
which is where Mr. Miyagi was from.
I think J-Bug, we've met her. She's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kid. I call her a kid because I'm 173, and J-Bug, I think, is 20. So, wonderful person. I'll add to what you said. Orientalis is one of my favorite. Every single gecko is my favorite, but Orientalis is. I think the name just changed recently. But anyways, who cares? Orientalis. Would say that?
They found a sub.
Oh,
That's what I was told. Is that it's not that they changed the name. They found almost like a sub, kind of like what they did recently with the mossy leaf tails, the Europlatus. How they have the Europlatus. What is it? The aft, AFT. It's still a Sakura, but it's Sakura aft. You know, one of those type of things. Yeah.
Where again, if you just say Orientalis, everybody's going to know it. It's just such a gorgeous and not really hard to keep, but I think we kind of came close to losing them as well. I know Richie is working with them. I don't know if you're producing babies yet.
Well, I'm at my problem is right now. And I say my problem in that people who've hit me up, and I probably should just say this so that if someone does hit me up, I want to say I'm at 8 babies right now, but as of right now, I know for a fact at least 6 of them are male. So that's where I'm at. I'm sitting. I don't want to go too deep, but I'm going to tell you because I've been sitting here waiting for my license. I am sitting on so many. Like my baby gargoyles are young adults at this point. And I've just been only hatching more and more since. So yeah, when I do my first show semi-locally or locally, it's going to be a table covered with stuff. That's the good news.
Excellent. And if you're in the area, if any of our viewers are in the area, you better go to that show. And if you want,
it'll be worth it. If you mention that you were in this live and you come to a show where I'm at, I promise you, no matter what's written on there, it's going to be knocked down quite a bit just because me and Wally have been wanting to do this forever. And honestly, I like connections. I like knowing people. When I say connections, I mean I like to connect with people. So it's worth it to me to knock a price down a bit if it's somebody who I might keep in contact with. I've given people deals as long as they promise to send me an update in 60 days.
Yes.
So
absolutely. Julie's saying road trip. Let's all get in it. Let's do the Animal House road trip. Let's get in.
I wanted to do Tinley.
Yeah,
I wanted to do Tinley this year, honestly, because of the fact that they're talking again, Joe and all them. But I just can't. Not this year. I've got too many things to beat down.
All my Buy Me a Coffee members, let's go over to the site. Let's do the support. All the monies from tonight going into Buy Me a Coffee is going into a plane ticket for 2 plane tickets for Misty and Ian to get over to Tinley this year. So get over there right away and start supporting.
I wish.
I'm going to do it again. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been a blast. We could go for 14 hours for sure here. Ian Pulka series is going, and we finished 1, and we're going to go on 2. This is going to be a 100-part series, so make sure that you are there for number 2. Thank you, Ian, so much for your time and your energy and what you've done to the hobby, and thanks for being on tonight.
Thanks, Misty, for all your help.
Thanks for having me. Misty can hear you. She's just downstairs, but she's on the phone.
Thank you, Misty. Good night, Ian. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.